thinking about it, and I was like, oh my gosh, you know, you're out there seeing all that stuff. So,
Hey guys.
safe. Hey.
Hi. Hi, Kim. Hi, Tyler. Hi, Emmy.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Alexa.
Hello.
Hey.
So we're missing Brandon. Is that it? We're missing Brandon.
Yeah.
Open this up.
I haven't seen you in a while.
Buddy. Raul, I'm assuming you have today off, right?
Yeah, I'm post call today.
Okay. And hopefully you got a good night's sleep. Let me actually get comfortable and charge and everything.
I'm jealous. Everyone has like a Dachshund related background. I'm like,
I moved some stuff because I was like, oh man, yeah, Jordan has a whole wall case.
It's my office, so I just was like, I'll just post up across.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have
Amber
a dog
changed
on
her
my feet,
background
too.
and her name.
Yes, this time. I didn't realize that it wasn't whoever's talking is shown. So
Yeah.
like I watched it and I was like, oh man, I need to pay
Yeah,
attention.
I was like, who's that? What?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could set it up to where it just shows the person who's talking, but
It's fine.
then I can't watch everybody what's going on. You know what I'm saying with everybody?
Here's mine.
Yeah, my dogs are socially distancing right now because I have a dog and a bitch, and the wire's in season. I'm just like,
Oh,
Oh my god.
now is when he actually cares. He was being really good up until yesterday, so I'm like,
how's Iris, Kim?
Oh, she's doing so good. I'll send you a picture of her. I took her to Terrence to groom the other day,
Mm-hmm.
and she looks really good. She's maturing beautifully. You'll be so happy. And she's great. She's just a good little girl, you know? She's just a good girl. I love her.
oh Lord.
And who is Iris, Kim?
Iris is Roll and Kim and Paula bred her. She's Clara by Crash.
Okay,
So-
very cool.
Yeah, she's
How old is she?
17 months. They're 17 months now.
Okay,
Yeah.
still a
they're
baby.
Still a baby. Yeah, still a baby. And then I have the two little babies. So here that are out of Chloe. So and Crash. So moving
Very
right
cool.
along.
Very
Slowly
cool.
but surely. Slowly but surely.
Right, for sure.
it does not seem like that long ago.
Amber, I
Hopefully-
heard you say you were 24 years old, and I have a son who's almost 22.
Really?
And I thought I could be her mother.
Yeah. It's crazy. I don't know. It's weird. It's weird.
Oh man. Mm.
Yeah.
I thought it was funny.
Definitely the old lady.
I thought it was funny when Bobby the other night, he was like, I remember when everyone was in juniors. I was like,
I know.
yeah.
That wasn't that long ago.
About that like 5 minutes ago. It's like, when was that Dallas Nationals? Like, shit, that was like what, 2007?
Oh, wait.
Oh, eight?
Yeah, because that was
Like
Yeah.
12 years ago.
It doesn't seem long ago, but then when I'm talking to like the current juniors that live in my area, I was like, shit, I'm old.
Right.
It goes by so fast.
I'm like,
Time is flying. That's all I
Time
can
does
say.
fly.
It goes
Mhm.
fast.
Flying.
It does. Enjoy, because it does
yeah.
go
That's right.
fast.
I was
Enjoy.
thinking when I first started, I was about 26, you know, and just decided to do it. And now I'm 43, and it doesn't seem like all those years have gone by so fast. You know, looking at where I was then to where I am now, I was like, what happened?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It was quick. Brandon's having technical issues, but there's
No, I'm
Brandon.
here.
Hey, Brandon. We still have about 8 minutes before I start the live feed, and so if you need, like I said, this will probably take at least probably 2.5 because there's so many of us, which is not a problem if that's okay with you guys. So I would make sure that maybe you have water or something to drink or a snack. Now's the time to go to the bathroom. Um,
No
sorry,
intermission.
the school teacher and me. Listen, kids, everybody potty before we get on the bus. And make sure if somebody else close has, if like I have my iPad in here, so I'm watching it on the live feed to make sure everything's still working, but I've turned the volume off so there's not any feedback. So if somebody else in your house is close to you that's listening to this, you might ask them to turn the volume down or put in headphones, or that way. I don't know if you noticed from the test we did the other night, but there was a little bit of feedback, I think. I know I had some from my device being on right here, so I had to revamp how I did that. So just kind of double check that. If you happen to pop off the meeting, like if your internet is acting crazy, just join back on. That happens sometimes. And I've got my phone here, where if something happens, you can private message me or whatever, and I'll make sure somehow between all of this technology I pretend to halfway know, I'll get you back in, but I think it should be okay.
Okay.
And I'm going to I have to read a disclaimer at the very beginning, do a little intro, read a disclaimer, and just so people understand that we're not representing DCA, Lord forbid, we step on anybody's toes for DCA. So I'll read that, and then after that, we'll start our introductions again. And I'm assuming after our little practice the other night that y'all's screen is probably now set up like mine. So like Brandon, I have you in the bottom right corner. Does everybody have him in the bottom right corner?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I'm in
Jordan,
the
I have you in the
Oh,
top left.
how do we do that? I just see one person at a time, and then I can see all of you like across the top.
So it's the gallery view. There's
Yeah.
like a little button
Oh,
that you
okay.
can click, and it's way better.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can see all of us.
Yeah.
Thank you. There we go.
Hi, everybody. I can see everybody.
Now,
Can everybody see everybody now? Kim, can
Yeah,
you see everybody? Okay.
Yeah.
I was working during the meeting last time. Is there anything that I missed that I need to know before this starts?
No, not really. I just told them, I think the biggest thing is, Kim called me yesterday. We were talking because there's been some noise in the background from some of the older members. And it's just to be very transparent and speak your truth, but also be mindful of other people out there, especially some of the older members. If you've had an issue or whatever, just know that I've already let somebody know to watch the live feed and make sure there's not any of that garbage going on from some of our older people who feel like people have to pay their dues, or once you don't work with somebody anymore, then you're not allowed to be in Dachshunds anymore. All that garbage, we're just not putting up with that. So be very transparent and speak your truth, but also kind of be mindful. If you've had a bad experience with somebody, I probably, I just kind of step around that maybe, or just, definitely don't mention any names. If you do use a name, like if you're working with Kim and Paula, go ahead and say Kim Vadrine and Paula Carter, because there's new people out there that don't know who everybody is. If you name a dog, like if I talk about here later, what's your favorite dog, or what's the best dog you've ever bred, or whatever, make sure you go ahead and use their full registered name as well as their call name. Because people will go look it up after this, if they're interested. So that would be my suggestion on that.
Okay.
And then
So,
we're still having a look. Did y'all hear the feedback?
Yeah.
a little bit. Yeah.
Do we know what that is by any chance?
Do we want to maybe mute each of us and just to see? I don't know.
Yes.
Because I know in my work meetings we do that and keep each other on mute, but this is more of a discussion.
Let's see what we've got going on. Mute.
so Lexa, if we have a question for someone else, or if we want to kind of like piggyback on someone else's thought once everyone has answered,
Go ahead.
question, what's the best way to go about that? Should we just like raise our hand or something?
Yeah, just
Okay.
raise your hand, or say, I'd like to add on. Let's mute our mics for just a second, see if we can figure that out. Okay, Jordan, turn your mic on. Okay, mute your mic for just a second, Jordan. Amber, turn yours on.
Hello, hello.
Yeah, that sounds good. Okay, go ahead and mute yours, Raul. Let's do yours.
Hello.
That sounds good. Okay, go ahead and mute Kim.
Mute it now.
Yeah, were you muted already? Did you unmute? You're talking. You're unmuted.
Yeah.
I think yours is okay. Tyler, and let's unmute yours and let's listen.
Good.
Yeah, that's good. Emmy, let's do your mic.
Hello, hello.
That sounds good. Brandon, let's do yours.
Hello.
Okay, Jordan, let's do yours one more time. I think it's coming from whatever you're using.
My computer? I don't really have anything else on.
Is someone vacuuming or doing laundry behind you?
Me?
Mhm.
There's music outside.
Mm.
I have a fan on.
It sounds like just when you're talking in your mic, it's almost like bouncing off, almost like an echo effect, I guess.
Am I like too far away?
I
She
don't
could
know.
try calling in. She could try the dial-in number from her phone. That's another way to do it instead of using the computer mic.
Or should I go out and like re-come back in?
I'm wondering if it's a volume thing. I don't know. And I don't know how to do the call-in thing, so Amber would have to help you with all that.
Yeah, so there's a dial-in for the meeting, which I think you sent over. Let me try to find it. Meeting ID. Okay, let me see.
Jordan, what you may want to do is just mute your mic, and then when it's your turn to talk, unmute and talk, and then mute it back.
Okay.
That might be a quick solution until we can get the call in. It's 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
So if you guys are ready to go live, normally I wouldn't care. We could take a few minutes, but we were 3 minutes late last time, and people were like, "Where are they? What are we doing? Where is it?"
3 o'clock.
I have no patience yet. They don't want to set this up. So I don't know what they're complaining about.
Okay, I found the dial-in, you guys. Jordan, I can just take a picture of it and send it to you.
Okay. So should I just mute it then?
I would just mute until you speak, and then unmute it when you talk, and then mute it back. And I think that'll help a lot. And then Amber will send you this information, and I think you can just dial it in.
Yeah, you dial it in and you enter in the meeting ID, and that'll get you into it. So
I'm going to go ahead and get us set up live streaming because I've already got people blowing up my phone. I swear, Lord forbid.
So impatient.
They're so funny.
We have nothing better to do on Mother's Day than this.
I know, right?
Right.
I told my mom, watch this. This is your present.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
I
I don't
appreciate you guys being here on the holiday. We don't want that, and we do want this. Go live anyway. Okay. Get back with you guys and make sure that's going. It should be. Does everybody have live? I show live on Facebook. Does everybody on your screen say live Facebook or whatever?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is everybody good on that?
Yep.
Brandon, do you see it?
Not on my screen.
I don't see it either.
I see it upper left.
That's where I see it.
Okay.
I just see it just says recording on mine.
Okay. I have recording too, and it should be live on Facebook. I showed on the doc site that it is live. So we'll give everybody just about a minute to kind of get switched over and moving over. And that looks good. See what the comment is already. And then we'll get
Okay,
started.
yeah, it's live now. It's live.
Everybody see it? Well, if I want to look at the comments, what's the problem? This is my life. This is what happens when you get to be middle-aged. Excellent. All right. You guys ready? Okay. I want to give a warm welcome to our panelists today that have joined us. Let's see if we can. Yeah, I'm hearing it back, Jordan.
I have it on the call, so I'm not sure why it's doing that.
It just may be you're hearing, and then we're hearing me talking through your phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to work. I'll just unmute it and remute.
Okay, that'd be good. All right. I want to give a warm welcome to our panelists who have joined us today. We are going to talk with our young, new, or inexperienced, or working on experienced dachshund breeders and exhibitors today. I want to remind everybody out there before we get started, if the feed goes down, we'll get it back up as soon as we can. I think we'll be okay though. I want to remind everybody that the purpose of this forum is social in nature, and it is an encouraging learning environment and a call to action in the breed of dachshunds. We will all have our own individual responsibilities and accountabilities with this session. The purpose of the session is to hear from our younger people up and coming in the sport. Our conversation will be diverse with different opinions and perspectives. Diversity can create confusion or feelings of disagreement, and that's great sometimes, as long as we keep it respectful. Those of you watching, please participate in the conversation through the chat box, but please don't dominate the chat box as an individual. It helps me field the questions for the moderator. Questions and comments must be applicable and relevant to the conversation. And I will say that if you ask a question, we're going to get to those at the end of this, because some of those questions may be answered while we're talking over the next 2 hours. And I have a list of prepared questions already. So if we don't get to your question right away, don't worry. We'll come back to it towards the end. We will not have any questions or commentary that is not directly related to the subject or things of a personal or political nature. And I have a list of prepared questions. The event is being live streamed on Facebook and will be available to watch after the video is over. You must be on Facebook to participate. The disclaimer for this event is not sponsored or endorsed by any formal organization or entity. While we invite judges and other authorities, this should not be deemed as an official education event, nor should it be interpreted as authoritative content. So with that, let's go around and introduce everybody. I'm so glad you guys are here today. Thank you for taking time out on your Mother's Day to come speak with me and us and have a little conversation and allow that to be viewed on Facebook. So we'll kind of round robin around the screen. So Jordan, we'll start with you first. Can you introduce yourself to everybody, please?
Yeah, I just want to say happy Mother's Day to everybody. I'm Jordan Misfelt Wallace. I'm 30 years old and I've been in the breed about 16 years now. I breed standard long-haired dachshunds and I register dogs under the prefix Royal Air. I currently live in Milwaukee, Oregon. It's like 20 minutes south of Portland. And I started showing in juniors in 2004 with my mini smooth dachshunds. And shortly after that, I transitioned to breeding and showing standard long-haired dachshunds. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Jordan. All right, Amber, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, so my name is Amber Leonard. I am 24 years old. I was born and raised in Portland, Oregon, and I started showing dogs when I was 11. I'm now 24. So I've been in the breed for 13 years. Basically, I'm one of 7 kids, and I never had a dog growing up. So my family wanted to find a standard smooth dachshund. So when I was 11, we ended up getting connected with a standard smooth breeder in the area. And then I met Nicole Cooper of Spellbound Dachshunds. So Nicole is basically like a mother to me. Happy Mother's Day, Nicole. But she essentially took me under her wing and just kind of showed me the world of dogs. And I fell in love with dachshunds. I eventually fell in love with the long-haired variety. and I got introduced to Mary Freibert of Wunderbar Dachshunds. From there, she kind of let me own one of her best bitches, Wunderbar Ditch Witch. So that bitch really helped me segue into the breed ring within Dachshunds. But from there, I got introduced to Carlos Puig of Hundeleben Dachshunds. I worked for professional handlers since I was 13 at dog shows. I showed in junior showmanship. I worked for Rick and Dinah Bagenstos. I worked for Laura Reeves as well, and essentially just showed all over the US. But now I live in Chicago. I've lived in Brazil for a year showing dogs. I've shown all over. So I've also bred some good litter so far as well. So yeah, I breed under the prefix Ambra Dachshunds as well. I don't think I mentioned that. But yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Raul, we know you got had to work during our practice. We're so glad to have you with us today. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody?
Hi, my name is Dr. Raul Hernandez Rubio. I live in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'm originally from San Juan, Puerto Rico. I started with Dachshunds in juniors when I was 14 years old. I'm now 29, soon to be 30. I currently have 2 standard long-haired Dachshunds. I breed under the name Rex Star, and hopefully soon I will be starting with Guardian Vizslas. My first experience with Dachshunds with my 2 mentors, Cheryl Sims, Darkshire Dachshunds, and Rochelle Melanie Porter, Saquish Goldens, and Dachshunds. So I've been showing junior since 14, started with Afghan Hounds and with miniature Dachshunds. I started because my first dog was a Shih Tzu and passed away, and then my way of like learning about dogs was just watching dog shows, watching Yuka Nuba, and luckily my aunt saw me practicing in the backyard, just imitating what Scott Summer was doing with his Bijans, and she said that her friend was the president of the kennel club in Puerto Rico, and that's just kind of how it all started. Since then, I transitioned from miniature Dachshunds to my Vizsla and more so sporting dogs, and I got my 2 standard long-haired Dachshunds back in 2010. Had my first litter in 2014, and since then I haven't really looked back. I've been to DCA once, went to the garden twice, and I consider a lot of people my mentors. Always a lifelong learner of breed and Dachshunds and dog shows in general. Yeah, I'm excited to be able to talk and contribute and share my experiences.
Absolutely. We're glad that you're here with us today. Thank you so much. All right, Kim, let's go over to you. Can you introduce yourself for us, please?
I can. My name's Kim Lanham. I am 49 years old. Started about 11 years ago in Dachshunds, got a retired long-haired mini champion from a lady for my boys to show in juniors. And he was the most wonderful little dog ever. We miss him every day. But kind of went from him to the standard long hairs. Love them dearly, love everything about them, their temperament, everything. I'm currently learning more and more from Paula Carter and Kim Vadrine. I have wonderful friends that I've met along the way, Sue Cook, Lynn Tyler, Jerry and Roger. They have been wonderful people. I can always call them, ask them questions, bounce anything off of them, continuing to learn, like Raul said, and hoping to just establish myself more and more as time goes on. I'm the mother of 3 sons, never a dull day here, so lots of responsibility with that, lots of sporting games to go to. So as time goes on, I hope that I will see you all more and more. And I'm in Georgia. I'm in Stone Mountain, Georgia.
Excellent. Thank you, Kim. All right, Tyler, let's swing over to you. Can you introduce yourself for us, please?
I can. So my name is Tyler Mills. I'm 30 years old and I live in Amosville, Virginia. We're about 50 minutes outside of DC, so a nice little piece of the country. I started about 12 years in purebred dogs with Pap. So I don't have a hound background. I started in toys, and I worked for some of the what I consider most prominent Papillon kennels. I worked with Tracy Burdick of Denzel Papillons and Mike and Donna and Gia Garofalo of Involo Papillons. They gave me a really good start in purebred dogs and sort of took me under their wing as far as my original mentors. I moved into having an English setter as my first personal show dog, and spent some time in that breed where I learned a lot about coat care and just the maintenance of a larger breed show dog, a lot different than having toys, and went to work for Kathy Vogel and Danielle Ardania of Vogelflight Bichons. So I've had kind of an interesting start in dogs. About 6 years ago, I got my first Dachshund from Angela Lloyd, who I worked for several years and was my original Dachshund mentor. I learned a lot in that position and certainly have carried a lot over with what I have now. And my main focus at this point has been my standard wire hair Dachshunds and miniature wire hairs, as well as a sort of unique partnership with Sandra Hickson and Betty Ann Stenmark of Kings Mountain Dandy Dinmont Terriers. So sort of keeping with the long and low theme, which I've enjoyed very much. I'm now breeding under the watermark prefix for my first litter of standard wires. And I've really enjoyed having them the last 9 weeks, but I'm looking forward to them starting to go off to their new homes and kind of move on to where they need to go, since it's a lot having a large litter, and balancing that with being a professional handler. It's been nice to sort of have this break, even though it wasn't intentional or what any of us really wanted. It's been a great time for us to kind of just enjoy and reflect on our puppies and raise what we have. So enjoying it very much.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Tyler. All right, Emmy, let's go down to you. Can you introduce yourself for us, please?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Again, happy Mother's Day. I'm Emmy Pedraza. For those that are still not used to the name change, I was previously Emmy Williams. My career in Dachshunds has actually been my entire life. So my mom got our family's first purebred Dachshund, a total pet. A couple years later, she did get an attempt at a show dog. But that was in 1992 was our first one, so actually a year before I was born. I'm 26, almost 27, and I currently born and raised in Southern California. I live in San Diego, California. And basically, I mean, obviously Dachshunds in particular have always been a part of my life, but I'm one of 5 kids. The bug definitely caught me earlier on than the rest of my siblings, I should say. And as soon as I turned 10 years old, I wanted to be registered in my first dog show. I remember my actual first DCA was the 2004 DCA, where I got my last first place novice junior win. And I was so excited to be competing in Best Junior at DCA. Of course, being a little novice junior with my white stockings. I mean, looking back, that was a little embarrassing, but I was definitely hooked from the start. My first bred by exhibitor champion, so my mom kind of let me, once she realized that I was interested in dogs, she allowed me to kind of sign on to the bitch that we had at the time to be a co-breeder. So my first bred by exhibitor champion was at the age of 12, Kindertech holds 4-star Lily. And then since then, obviously just because of the familial relationship, I've been co-breeding with my mother under the Kindertech holds Standard Smith Dachshund prefix. And then, as I'll get to, I'm also beginning the venture of continuing the Schoolhouse wire hair Dachshund line that was started over 50 years ago by Anderson. Okay, I'm gonna apologize because I still get a little bit choked up. Judy Anderson, who is my standard wire hair breeder, she passed away earlier this year, as many of you guys know. But anyways, getting into the breeding and the junior showmanship aspect. I mean, obviously I started when I was 10. I was very competitive throughout my years. Looking back, I don't think I missed a single DCA up until I went to college. I was actively involved. I worked for professional handlers, most notably Pam Lambie, Bill and Taffy McFadden, Amy Rutherford, and I still actually help Janice Hayes, who's a good friend of mine, and I help as much as I can nowadays at shows that we're both at. I think that helping professional handlers really does give the benefit of overall learning handling, grooming, but also just giving perspective on overall dog structure and conformation. Yeah, and in terms of breeding, obviously, just to give a little bit more background information on the schoolhouse prefix. Judy Anderson, I was looking for another junior showmanship dog when I was 14. She gave me Bronny Schoolhouse Street Smart, who ended up being a top 10 Wirehood Dachshund. And from there, we actually formed an even stronger bond. We traveled together to shows, co-bred several litters beginning in 2012 and on. And now, thanks to Fred and Carol Vogel, Brodney, the other half of Brodney Schoolhouse, as well as Shirley Ray's help in contributing our recent bitch, Ray Doc's Schoolhouse Blaze of Glory, I'm just now getting ready, hopefully actually this week, breeding the continuation of Schoolhouse Dachshunds. So my entire journey, it's obviously been with a lot of help and support along the way, and kind of how Raul, Kimberly, everyone that on so far has mentioned, I'm a perpetual learner of the breed, and even though now that I think about it, I've been involved for 17 years myself, I still have a long way to go and always really looking towards advancing the breed.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Emmy. All right, Brandon, let's swing over to you. Can you introduce yourself to us, please?
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Brandon Winfield. I am 36 years old, well, 36 next month. And I've been in the breeds for about 6 years now. I started when I was 30, and I'm probably, from what it sounds like, I'm the only one who's been in the breed for the least amount of time. And the reason I got into it is because I grew up watching Westminster every year when I was, 5 years old, and just watched every year. And I always wanted to show dogs. I always wanted to show, I wanted to be a handler. And every year I made sure I was home. Every second week in February, that was my thing. And I took a little detour, and I actually went to the rescue world for a little while. And I actually started to fall in love with the breed of Dachshunds when I was fostering and rescuing, things like that. I did wind up taking home a few Dachshunds, and just slowly started to be intrigued by them. And so finally, I decided to get one as a pet, and I reached out to my now mentor and now co-breeder, Jennifer Underwood, who breeds under the name of Caldwell Dachshunds. And I went to her as trying to get a pet, and went to her house, fell in love with all her dogs, and she was telling me, oh, like this one and this one, that one and that one. And I told her, I said, I would love to show dogs. I would love it. And she got so excited. Her eyes got big as plates. They were just like, okay, you want to show? Come with me. So went to a dog show, fell in love even more. And then she allowed me to co-own a long-haired bitch with her. And the rest is history. I went in the ring and enjoyed it. And then she mentioned, if you really enjoy it now, wait until you actually show something that is something that you have created, that you have your name on. Then you're going to be, just strap up for the ride. It's going to be a wonderful feeling. So I now am a breeder of miniature smooth and miniature long-haired Dachshunds under the name of Winfield Dachshunds. As I mentioned before, Jennifer and I are co-breeders, and she is my mentor, a very good friend of mine, adoptive mother, and so I'm just on this ride, enjoying it, and just trying to learn as much as I can.
Excellent. Well, I really appreciate you guys being here today, and already it sounds like you have the most amazing and incredible story. So I'm looking forward to doing this, the next 2 hours with you guys and having this conversation. This is going to be fun. My next question was, who or are your mentors? But it seemed like everybody kind of touched on that in their introduction speech. Is there anybody that felt like they didn't get to share who their mentor was or is? Jordan, yeah, do you want to come in and tell us about your mentors?
Sure. I have kind of similar mentors as Amber as well. I'd say throughout the years when I first started, my mentors were Mary Freibert of Wunderbar Dachshunds and Nicole Cooper. of spellbound smooth dachshunds. And then kind of throughout the years, I went to my first DCA and became friends with Paula Carter and Kim Vadrine of Solo Dachshunds, as well as John Contupe of Aviance Dachshunds. But as of like recently, I've kind of developed a friendship with and mentorship with a couple local breeders, Meredith Taylor of MT and Julie Nielsen of Bedazzled. And they've kind of been taking me under their wing and helping me out and teaching me some new things that I always wanted to learn.
Excellent. Thank you, Jordan. Anybody else? Emmy?
Yeah, so I'm going to be talking about Judy Anderson a lot. Obviously, she was my mentor in Standard Wires and kind of got me going. I did gloss over, though, Standard Smooths, and actually my original mentors were Polly Fleming of Fleming Dachshunds and then Beth Ann Mills of 4-Star. They were actually the first ones that brought me to my second ever DCA, the first DCA that I traveled to. Polly, she was obviously in the breed for decades, and she passed away a couple years ago. But I think it's really important, and I think as this discussion continues, that as we kind of talk about what we've learned from the past, from other breeders and so on and so forth, that she was really the one that instilled in me what dachshund type is, looking at the standard in terms of front, looking for a proper front assembly and not trying to settle for mediocre. And yeah, so I just kind of wanted to say, just because I glossed over that in the beginning, that the original mentors were Polly Fleming and Beth Ann Mills, and I'm eternally grateful for everything that they taught me, and I wish both Polly and Judy were still here today.
Absolutely. Yes, Raul.
So yeah, like I said earlier, the first 3 people that I was involved with Dachshunds, and they're kind of my adopted mothers, are Rochelle Melanie Porter of Saquish Golden Retrievers and Long-haired Dachshunds, and Cheryl Sims, who went under Dockshire. And then throughout the years, like Jordan was saying, Kim Vadrine and Paula Carter of Solo Dachshunds, and Dan Harrison of Boondocks, I've also considered great mentors. I've had long conversations with them, and I owe a great deal of what I now know about Dachshunds and how my line works to those 6 people. But I think one of the things that I'll be talking about a lot is you don't necessarily have to have one mentor. You don't necessarily have to stick with one person. You really have to diversify and try to seek out information from other people, because everyone's going to have something to contribute. And then it's up to you to kind of filter what information you receive from them and pass along. But yeah, those 6 people were definitely incredibly influential as to what I've done with Dachshunds so far.
Excellent. Kim, I know that you wanted to add something to that too.
I do. Because I have long hairs and the grooming, can be a little overwhelming at times. I want to give a real shout out to Terrence Bolden. And Terrence has taught me so much about handling. He has challenged me to think about things instead of just telling me what he sees, think it through. Where do you want to go? Lots of long conversations with him, and not to mention, he's just a master groomer, and he can show you how to make, a dog look beautiful and to really accentuate what you have, and that's just invaluable to me. And so just having people around you who are, honest, who will share your vision going forward. Once you have that, and they will come on board and meet you where you are and go with you. And I think that is what is so important. I can't thank, Kim Vadrine and Paula Carter enough for that, because meeting someone where they're at, sharing in what they, have in their mind, and as my vision for Smoke Rise Dachshunds, which is what I breed under, sharing that with me, it just is invaluable to have somebody, have a group of people, kind of like Raul was saying. You have, a core of people who aren't wanting to teach you. They're wanting to, grow you so that you can move on, without them, without their constant influence every day. It's like having children, and you absolutely, see your student move forward. That is what it's about to me. So I hope that, one day I can pay, that forward to someone else. So.
Excellent. Let's go over to Amber, and then we'll kind of work our way down the right side of the screen, because I know, Brandon, you wanted to add to that too. So Amber, let's let you go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like along my journey personally, there have been so many people that have helped me, that have coached me, that have influenced me in positive ways. It would take so long to, like say everyone in this video. But definitely Nicole, who trusted me with her beautiful bitch, Lily, who really made me fall in love with dogs. I still talk to every single day. Like I said, Mary, she trusted me with her bitch. Carlos also trusted me with his dogs. And then also Kim Ristette was really right there, as I kind of grew up in juniors, taking me to dog shows and stuff. But I think mentors will never go away. And that's the such fun part about this community that we're in, is we all get to mentor each other. And it's so much fun just starting this and having the same mentors throughout it, and just knowing that I can call any of them and, they can give me good advice or direction. So it's been a lot of fun.
Excellent. Okay, Brandon.
Yeah, I had, not only did Jennifer is my mentor, but I have had people along the way who maybe not have been the as mentoring as her, but still have a wealth of knowledge, and they have been more than willing to share knowledge with me. Like Mark Stevenson out in California, he has given me so much information, and when we have time, we can talk on the phone or a Facebook message or something. Andrea Setlin with Dre Docs, Miniature Dachshunds. She has been she has a ton of knowledge, and she has given me tons of information. Nancy Bryant with Jonan Miniature Dachshunds, Smooth Dachshunds, was also a good bit of information to give. She has given me Valerio with Sunrise. He has given me some wonderful information too as well. So it's good to have a mixture of people to help blend their tastes and their ideas and their experiences, and to bring it all together to help you out, to have all these things come together and just have one that you can build into your own thing. So I like to thank them as well.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, Tyler, I know you wanted to add to that as well.
Yeah, I would say, especially with my current situation with my standard wire litter, Pat Leone and Gina Leone Mittings of Legibach Dachshunds have been wonderful. They gave me my foundation bitch. We've co-bred this litter, and we've had what we've considered to be a really exceptional quality within the litter. They've been wonderful through it. My closest friend and mentor in Dachshunds, I would probably say, is Steven Garza, who I know, Lexa, you have a fondness for as well. Yeah. He's been wonderful. We talk every couple days, and we share photos of dogs. We talk pedigrees. We talk through things that we see, and coming from a background that's a little bit different, we just share a different perspective, but always seem to find the groundingness for each other, which is really great to have. We're just within the breed, and sort of branching out into other breeds and having mentors within other breeds, just for that breeder perspective. The conversations that we have with Sandra and Betty Ann about the Dandies, that really carries over into what we do with the Dachshunds and the breeds that we have here. Betty Ann has had her hands on how many thousands and thousands and thousands of dogs. She's seen some of the greatest Dachshunds we've probably ever seen in our time, and she can tell you what they felt like to her. So just that knowledge that she's had and shared with us. Sandra, coming from a working breed, having Akitas, she's shared a lot as far as structure and movement. And it's just great to have that all around knowledge of different perspectives that they've shared with us. That just makes it so fortunate to have that resource that you can access whenever you need it.
Absolutely. And I'll just to kind of wrap this question up. I started what seems like a million years ago, and I really did rely. My very first mentor is Janine Sadinsky and her daughter Michelle Stahl out of the Lucien Kennel in California. And talking with her, I talked to her probably for 2 years every single day. just picking her brain, and she would talk about stuff that I didn't even understand. I'm like, I don't know what you just said, but okay. And to have those conversations and you know, to be mentored by her and then moving, you know, into K-Lab. But even just the other day, Janine sent me a little message and I called her on the phone and I was like, I love you. I miss you. And, you know, even though we've kind of moved past that mentor-mentee relationship into a deep, deep friendship, I think that's one of the most excellent things about mentorship is that you can go get other mentors and you can keep learning. And now most of my mentors are also my very, very good friends in the breed. And I don't pigeonhole that into just people that are older than me, you know, people that are younger than me that have a different perspective. Hey, what do you think? And I love to talk to Dachshund people. So if you're new out there listening, you know that there's just not what they were saying. There's not just one resource, you know, there's several. And I think all that sounds amazing. Thank you so much. Let's talk about, segueing into that, let's talk about when you think it's okay to break away from your mentors and kind of go out on your own, and what's the best way to do this. I know that you guys are have had litters or starting to have litters, or maybe it's the first one you've bred by yourself or some of those things. So let's talk about that. When do you think it's okay to have, you know, Winfield Dachshunds or Smoke Rise Dachshunds versus, you know, I've just taken these two breeders and put their dogs together and this is an extension of them. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think when your vision changes, when your goals change, it's okay to go ahead and make the decisions on your own, to branch out and decide, you know, which direction you want to go in and be responsible for all of it, whatever comes. So I think, you know, we all have, I guess, an ideal in our heads that we're working toward. And, you know, as it matches up with other people, you know, work with other people. I think it's great to do that because it takes a village. I really think it does. And I think that's what the sport needs, is a village of people coming together to move it forward. So in order to do that, you know, for yourself, for the breed, I think you have to, you know, have it playing in front of you and move forward. And if that means that you have to break away from something or someone, then that's what it means. And you can accept, you know, whatever comes with that, good or bad. So that's my personal, you know, opinion.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know, I think it can be really good. You know, I think it can be really good and can grow you from where you were.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
and that's what you want. You know, you want to learn, you want to grow, you want to, you know, keep yourself in the breed moving forward. And, you know, you have to make that happen.
Excellent. Amber, let's go over to
Yeah.
you. After that, we'll go over to Raul.
Yeah, I think for me, I think the original question was, when do you think it's okay to break away from your mentors, right?
Right.
Yeah, so for me, I don't think that there's ever going to be a time where I'm like, you know, I'm going out on my own and I'm, you know, breaking away. I'm never going to go back to these people or ask them what they think, because as a young breeder, you've only seen so much. I think my mentors are going to be mentors for life as long as I have them around. This is a collaborative thing. You know, breeding, it takes multiple parties, multiple people. You can't see all of the dogs that you place. You don't know all of the dogs from your pedigrees. You have to work with each other. So I don't think that I will ever be like breeding alone almost. I will always be kind of relying on what everyone else says in some way, and just trying to partner with as many people as I can as I see fit, just because we need each other. I don't think we can isolate ourselves as breeders. We need to continue to work with each other, mentor each other, be mentored, and continue learning. I don't think it's ever going to stop. So for me, I see my mentors as people that I'm always going to rely on.
Excellent. All right, Raul.
I agree with Amber. I think that your mentors are there for your entire life. They created the blueprint as to what your dogs are and who you are as a breeder. They will always be there for you to kind of guide you through the breedings. I mean, ultimately the decision is yours to make, but I don't think you ever really break away from your mentors, or I mean, I don't think that you should. I think a different way of seeing it, and it was the conversation that I was having several years ago with Dan Harrison of Boondocks, is when does a line stop being your mentors and when does it become yours? When do the Dachshunds stop being Darkshire or Saquish? When does it become Rex Star? When is it Solo and when is it Rex Star? And I think that's a little different. I think that once everyone would have their different opinions as to when you should consider a dog from your line as opposed to these are dogs from my mentor's lines. Maybe when you have 1 or 2 generations down the line, you can consider these dogs your line, but I think that's a totally different discussion. But to answer the question, I think that your mentors are your mentors for life, and they don't necessarily have to be the primary decision makers towards your lines, but they created the blueprint as to who you are as a breeder and as a handler. So I think that they should always have some sort of input into how you do moving forward.
Okay, Emmy?
Yeah, so again, I agree with everything that's been said so far. I think I would just like to add on because in my situation, I haven't broken away from my mentors. I think this is kind of the dialogue that's currently happening between the older generation and the younger generation is people are getting older. Like, as unfortunate as it is, people pass, and with their passing, you would hope that their ideas don't die. So with that said, as us younger breeders and actually all dachshund fanciers in general, I think it's really important to keep in mind that it's a collaborative effort. Even if you have personal differences with another breeder, you have to keep in mind that everybody is in this sport for a reason. We all want to advance our breed using our personal vision. Hopefully everyone's aligning it to the standard. But with that said, it's kind of, especially when you're thinking about breeding, I try, just based on what I've learned from my previous mentors, to look 2 or 3 generations down the line. I don't want to just do one breeding and just be like, oh, these are finishable. I want to keep in mind that all the years of pedigree work that the previous breeders before have done, as well as keeping in mind kind of the original vision. As a young breeder myself, I'm, again, kind of continuing a line, and I don't want to lose sight of all the hard work that breeders before me have done. But with that said, everybody has their own kind of personal style, what they want their ideal dachshund to look like. So it's kind of just balancing that, and as well as, again, making sure to reach out to people that are still actively involved in the sport. Now that I don't have Judy and Polly, I constantly lean on Fred and Carol, just phone calls away. Shirley Ray is also a great resource. And then in terms of just actively, like Ann Bishel, Lorraine Hogan, like anyone that happens to come into my area, like I love we do pizza parties in California. I remember Judy's last one, but it's always like, even if you don't necessarily breed together, it's such a great experience. And I actually hope that we can kind of rekindle this at DCA, which I think in the past couple of years, this kind of has been a discussion where you don't have to breed all your dogs together. You guys don't all have to be best friends. But with that said, we're all in this for the same reason. Let's have these discussions and actually kind of see each other as human beings, and also not make it all about dog shows either.
I think that sounds great. Jordan, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I kind of see the same thing. Like, you're always going to have your mentors. You're always going to have someone to go to and talk about your next breeding. It's challenging. It's daunting to go out and do it on your own. But I think those people being a support system is great. And moving forward, you have someone to always talk with about your next breeding plans or your breeding program as a whole, because they have a different perspective as far as like what you usually see, and they may have something like whole new to reveal and say, hey, you didn't think about this, or maybe have you looked at this dog. They're always there for you for support and guidance, whether they're in your coat or in another coat or different size or a different breed. They're always there to help kind of guide you in the right direction. Whether it's your vision or not, but it helps kind of guide you.
Excellent. Thank you. Brandon, did you have anything you want to add to that about breaking away from mentors?
I agree with what's being said. I think you always have your mentor, and it's great to have them that close to you. My only thing that I would like to add is if you feel like it, there comes a time when you do break away from your mentors, do it the right way. Don't do anything shady. Don't do anything that will cause any harm to yourself or the dogs or your mentor. Be respectful about it. Don't just be respectful. You know, there's a lot of time, there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of pride that's put into these breeding programs, and I just know that it would be terrible for somebody to have taken someone under their wing and have them and try to teach them and then have them just tossed away like a piece of trash or just not handling the situation correctly. So I would just add that just do it respectfully. Don't burn bridges, because you never know when it is a time when you may have to go back, or you may want to pick that person's brain, because once that bridge is burned, there's no going back.
Right. Absolutely. Tyler, did you have something you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think that it's a matter of really, you will find with your endeavors into dogs that things grow and change, and sometimes relationships fall apart, and it's not always the easiest or the best situation. I think it's important to always respect what you've learned from who you've learned it from, and give credit where credit is due. You go into this, we all go into this because we love our breed, we love our dogs, and that is the most important thing for me to remember through all of this, no matter what, is we are breeding dogs for our own benefit, for us to enjoy, for other people to enjoy, to create dogs that are healthy for everyone to enjoy long term, with a focus of promoting our breed and advancing our breed's health and structure, and so many different things. There's never a right or wrong time, in my opinion. I think that, like I said, that it can change from where you have a mentorship to a partnership, or where mentorships turn into you've outgrown that person or they've outgrown you, frankly, and it's just time to move on, and you learn from other people. You always want to explore different avenues of opinions and perspectives, because if you don't, we become that, as we discussed in our original meeting, that clique where it's the wire hair people versus the long hair people versus the the smooth people. It's just not. We're supposed to be one breed with 3 varieties, and we should be focusing on that promotion of each individual variety, and our focus for ourselves, but never lose sight of where we're going and what we're trying to accomplish.
Absolutely. And I will just share having my mentors, but also being a mentor to others. I haven't always done it the right way. And there are things that I wish as a mentor I could rewind. And, mentors are definitely not perfect, as we as learners are not perfect. And I think probably when I knew it was time to switch course was I was getting ready to breed a bitch, and I had a dog I really wanted to use, and I made a phone call and was like, hey, look at this dog. I'm so excited to use him. And the other end of the line would just destroyed the dog, tore him apart, had never seen the dog in the flesh, had never had their hands on him, and was like, I cannot believe you would be so stupid to do that. And that was devastating for me to hear as somebody. So I think as mentors, we have to be really careful as well how we're cultivating the relationships with our mentees. And I did the breeding anyway, and I had a beautiful litter. And so I think that there is some times where you have to kind of break away with your vision, but the person, I still have a wonderful relationship. I never said anything about it that it kind of hurt my feelings. I just pushed it aside and had to make the right decision for me. So I really appreciate your thoughts on that for mentors. I know we have a lot of people out there that are, actively looking for mentors or feel like they're having a hard time. So thank you for all of that. Let's go on to who do you admire in the breed, living or deceased? Who do you look up to? Who do you aspire to be? Or who have you heard about? You thought, I'd love to be friends with that person? Or what are your thoughts on that? So I'll ask the question again. Who do you admire most in the breed, living or deceased? Okay, Tyler.
I'll start on that one. It actually kind of came out recently. Somebody I really admire in the breed, who I think always is so helpful and kind, is Sherry Copenhaver. She is by far one of the kindest people I have ever met in dogs. She always has a kind word to share. Always there, offer to help. There's never an agenda or anything negative. I just can't say enough good things about her. She's been really wonderful, even in my own personal handling career and going on my own and creating my own self, and my moving further into dachshunds in my breeding program. She's always just been there as like a silent cheerleader, somebody I just really look up to and think, we're so fortunate to have her in our sport. I've just really admired that in her. People like Maddie Peterson and Adam Peterson, they've been wonderful people. They're always there to help, always giving a lending hand. Marietta Singleton, wonderful people, just great people that want to encourage you, that you may not always agree with, or they may not always agree with you, but they offer a different perspective in a respectful way, and they're kind. And it's just nice to have those types of people in our breed that are really actively seeking out a younger generation and pushing them along to continue on.
Excellent. All right, Raul, I'll go with you, and then I'll go to Emmy.
I mean, obviously, my mentors are someone that are those 6 people are people that I've always and always will admire, and I value their opinion deeply. People that I wouldn't necessarily consider mentors, but I admire them incredibly. I would have to say Carlos, because Carlos Puig, he has taken the breed and put it in the map and competing at a high level. And just the great handlers of today, of at least of my time, Angela Lloyd, Marietta, just because these are people that when non-dachshund people think of dachshunds, those are the people that handlers think about, because they're the ones that have put the breed in the map in terms of the all breed setting and the best in show ring. And I think as breeders and as dachshund fanciers, we owe them a lot today, just because they've kind of made dachshunds relevant, if you will, in the all breed situation. But yeah, I mean, other than my mentors, I think that the great handlers of today are people that I admire and someday aspire to be like.
Excellent. All right, Emmy, let's go down to you.
Okay, so I'm kind of piggybacking off of them again, but just to add on a little bit more. I think when, especially people that aren't in the dachshund breed, think of who's involved, they immediately think of Carlos Puig, Angie Lloyd, Marietta Singleton, and then Sherry Copenhaver. I mean, in terms of how beneficial she has been in terms of my growth and kind of interest into standard wire hairs. She, again, is just the kindest, sweetest person. I remember with my very first standard wire from Judy always said, she's like, I am not a groomer, get help anywhere else. And at the time I was working, I think it was Amy Rutherford. So Amy was obviously very helpful in terms of learning how to strip a wire dachshund coat. But I remember Sherry, one time she came out for some random California specialty show, and she immediately took my kind of molten wire puppy and made him look like $1 million. And she did that without even thinking about it. And that's just kind of acts of kindness that she's shown throughout the years. And I think that having that kind of kind heart and being so giving goes a long way in the sport. In terms of other people that I think of, Candy Kostick, she was involved for years in terms of the DCA juniors, doing kind of setting up all the clinics, doing all the events, raffles, so on and so forth. Now, as a working professional, I don't even know how she did it, but I think that's something that's really admirable. And I think the original question, going back to just kind of who you most admire. So kind of from a breeding aspect, I'll kind of make this short because I never actually got to meet them. I only heard the crazy stories of Peggy Westfall, Dee Hutchinson, Kay Ladd. Kay Ladd I did meet, but I mean, in general, it's like their breeding programs, which we can't really replicate anymore just because of the current situation in the US and not being able to have large breeding programs, but they had an identifiable type that kind of progressed the breed as a whole so much. So, I mean, I would love to be on a fly on the wall and hear their breeding ideas nowadays.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, Amber.
Okay. I would have to say it's the same as Raul. Definitely Carlos Puig, who is one of my mentors, who I lived with, who I worked for, who I have dogs from. And I think what I admire most about him is just his ability to really tune into the individual dog that he's working with. So just from a handler perspective, I mean, you watch him showing dogs. I would admire, even like when I was a lot younger, just watching his dogs just respond to him so well, you know, and he would show a dog and he would show every dog a little bit different. You know, there's not a one size fits all. And just his care for the animals, the way he communicates with them, everything like that is very admirable. He really does love the dogs, and that's how I feel about it as well. So it was really great for me to watch that firsthand, and just kind of observe, you know, from afar. It's been really valuable. So that was my piece there.
Excellent. All right, Kim.
I just want to mention Tyler also mentioned Steve Garza and Lexa, you too. Just somebody that I can call anytime, and we can talk about lots of things from the kids to the dogs. And so he's wonderful. And also Sherry, I only see her when I go out to my home state of Oklahoma, and she is always warm and welcoming and a big hug and a big smile for me, you know, cheering me on with whomever I've brought with me, or if there's nobody with me. She's wonderful. And I'd like to also just mention two other people out in Oklahoma, and it's Aubrey Nash and his partner Ray. They are wonderful people as well. They just, you know, they are always cheering for you, always supportive of you, offering a helping hand whenever you need it. And that's, you know, that goes a long way. All of that goes a long way. A big smile, a warm hug goes a long way.
Absolutely. All right, Brandon.
I mean, I haven't been in the breed for as many years as many others, but in my short time that I've been in the breed, I've really come to admire Laura Abbott. She has been just a very kind person to me, very supportive. I love her breeding program. I'm very thankful to have a part of it in behind some of my dogs, and that's just a person that I really have. We don't show in the same area, but sometimes I have gone out a little bit and have been in the ring with her or just been at a show with her, and she has always been a sweet person to me. Very, very just very pleasant to be around, and just very supportive. Very, very, very supportive. Very sweet lady.
Thank you so much. All right, Jordan, did we get to you yet? Okay, your turn.
So I kind of took this question as like, who do you look up to as far as like breeders of the past? So I chose Dan Harrison and Wally Mary Jones of Boondocks Dachshunds and Walmart Dachshunds. I idolize their breeding programs as far as what they've produced, their vision as far as that. I want to take that into my own someday. And the dogs that I chose for those dogs would be PJ, which is Champion Boondocks Panama Jack. He kind of set the foundation for those breeding programs, and he's like very influential in my eyes. As well as for like an ideal bitch, I chose Treasure, which is Champion Boondocks for Mark Treasure.
Yeah.
And those kind of are the influential people and dogs that I always kind of envision in my breeding program.
Well, I like that. Let's segue into that and talk about if you have a favorite dog of the past that is really kind of your ideal when you're looking, or just a favorite or anything. I can share mine is one of them is Venture of Hardaway, which is an old dog from, you know, 50s or 60s. I can't remember, but that's just, he wasn't perfect, but just looking at that dog, I'm like, wow, that's amazing. So let's go with that. Jordan, I'm glad that you brought that up. Let's talk about if you have a dog like that. Amber, do you have a dog off the top of your head that you just think is amazing?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's hard for me to say like dogs of the past are amazing just because I wasn't able to see them. Just from photos, it's hard to say. Of course, there are tons of dogs that look amazing from the past. But as far as dogs that I've witnessed and had my hands on, definitely Solo's Primo is gorgeous, gorgeous, amazing dog. I also really love Cheese, Hunaleben Queen's Armada as well, which was the dog that we chose to breed to Hazel, Mary, and I for the first litter that I co-bred. Those are just a few that come to mind that really had incredible movement, just very, very sound dogs.
Excellent. Raul, what about you? Is there a dog that comes off the top of your head that you really admire?
Yeah, I agree with Amber. It's tough to say the dogs that we've never seen. Obviously, the whole Boondocks kennel. We can go on and on about the dogs that have been influential in our breed from them. But from my lifetime, I would the two that come to mind would obviously be Burns. Well, more so, oh my God, who's the first stud dog that I used with my bitch Adriana. And then the dog that got me into Dachshunds, that made me fall in love with the breed, was a dog under the name Darkshire Star of Texas, Dallas, who her breeder, or his breeder, eventually became my mentor, Cheryl Sims. Those are just dogs that I've seen in the show ring, got a chance to interact with, and made me fall in love with the breed and keep me with the breed today.
Excellent. I've kind of lost my little square here. Kim, have we got to you yet?
No, I'm kind of like the other guys. I did not get to see a lot of the dogs in person that I have only, seen pictures of, and I admire those. But one that comes to mind is, I believe Wally Mary Jones bred her Quiet Mistress. The picture that I have in my head when I, think about the perfect dachshund, it's her picture that I see. So, for me, she would be, the ideal. Yeah.
Excellent. Tyler, what about you? Do you have an ideal in your head? So dog that you've seen?
Yeah. I first fell in love with mini wires when I saw Champion Glen Eagle, who's famous. Noah, he was the most adorable and darling little red mini wire dog I think I've ever seen. His father, Champion Scotiaire, famous Amos. Both of them, to me, have exceptional type and qualities that you look for in a mini wire. In standard wires, I would say it was Champion Starbaric Malachite, who was exceptionally beautiful. Most recently for me, the dogs that I found, who actually my pedigree that I'm working with now with Pat and Gina, draws off of this, and it's Champion Tres Pineros Buena Sera. The sister to her name was Bridget. She is actually the grand dam of my litter that I have now. I'm thrilled to have that Tres Pineros line in the pedigree that I'm working with, as well as Captain Crunch, who was a beautiful standard red wire dog that Angie Lloyd showed as well. All these dogs were dogs I saw for very short amount of time in my first introduction into dachshunds, and probably didn't appreciate them as much as I should and do now. And certainly, all the dogs that have been mentioned, I think anybody who's truly in dachshunds and has read some pedigrees or knows most of these dogs, all of them have contributed so much to our breed and where they are now.
Absolutely. All right, Emmy, do you have something you want to add to that?
Yeah. As everyone's been going around, I'm like, oh my God, those are such beautiful dogs. I agree with all of you about the standard longs, the standard wires. No one's really talked about standard smooths, which for me, coming from my start, I guess, I fell in love with Fleming's Prince of Doxy line. Connections with both the Sadinskis and then obviously Polly Fleming. He was a stunning dog campaigned by Michelle Stahl. I believe it was in the early 90s. Ladlin Juliet is another dachshund that comes immediately to mind. Carlos Puig showed her. Obviously, K-Lad bred her. She, in my mind, is pretty close to perfect. Starbark's Malachite, in terms of standard wires, is a dog I've always admired. In terms of recent dogs, Buena Sera, I think, was gorgeous as well. And then Radox Playing with Fire, Von Glacierbach. I still don't know how to pronounce that. Cinders. I mean, she is obviously related to Jilly, my bitch that I have from Shirley. And I think of her as absolutely stunning. So those are just dogs that immediately come to my mind. I need to go back and look through old dachshund magazines, because whenever I look, I always find a dog that I'm just like, oh my gosh, let me look back through pedigrees. How are they related to current dogs?
Excellent. What, Brandon, do you have a dog that maybe is current in the show ring besides Bossy Pants that you think is
And Cookie.
great? And Cookie.
Well, I'm kind kind of like everybody else, I haven't gotten a chance to see a lot of dogs in the past. There is one dog in the past that I do really like, and I am also thankful he's in my pedigree as well, is Champion Ed Sims Riptide. I think he was, from what I have seen pictures of, he's been a gorgeous dog, and I am happy to have him behind my dogs. So that's fine.
Yeah, I think that sounds great. I think those are all wonderful, beautiful examples of the breed. Thank you so much for sharing that. Let's talk about your experience with breeding and showing so far. If, that's kind of a general question, but you think it's positive, negative? You know, once you do it long enough, you know, you'll have flows and ebbs and that. But you know, how's that been so far for you guys?
I can go first. Yeah, so I guess for me, so far, I mean, definitely you hear all the time, breeding is not for the faint heart. And that definitely rings true for me. I mean, my first litter that I co-bred with Mary, it was a pretty successful litter. We had, the majority of them were champions. 2 of them were sent abroad, 1 to Sweden, 1 to Russia. Out of that litter was Cheddar, Hundabar Hundalevens Druids Fluid, who was the #1 long-haired dachshund last year. He won the national last year. He's a best in show winner. So like that litter went really well. And then during that time span, I, you know, tried breeding again, and I've just learned you can't get attached to these dogs. You have to be very, very honest with what you have. You have to be willing to let go things that aren't worth breeding. You know, I've just really fantasized about breedings working and everything like that, and then they really don't turn out. You have to let those go. While I was in Brazil, I bred a litter myself, and that litter, the bitch got mastitis and then parvo. So I had a parvo litter where I lost 1 puppy of 5. So it's just really like, it's hard. It's really hard. You have to be very tough. You have to know, you know, when to let things go. And like I said, so far it's been fun, but you definitely have to be tough is what I've learned so far.
Excellent. Anybody have anything to add to that? Go ahead, Brandon.
To kind of mirror what Amber said, breeding, you know, everybody says breeding is not for the faint of heart. Breeding is not for sissies. It is not. It is legit hard. My first long-haired bred by litter, I was so excited about. The day that the bitch was to whelp, I lost her and a litter of 7 to a black lot, just like that. My first smooth bred by litter, very excited about that. All duds. Like none of them were just did not work. Breeding did not work at all. Then, you know, I got worried. I got scared. I didn't know how to go forward. I was just petrified. And then my second bred by smooth litter, 2018, we go to Orlando. She goes best of winners at the DCA regional to finish her championship. And I've had some good points then, but as far as like breeding and showing, breeding is fine now, but in the beginning it was very, very rough. Showing and same thing is you had to crawl before you can walk. So you had to, I had to take some hard licks and get some little kind of pat down in the ground, say kind of humble me in a sense. And then I worked my way up, and I mean, showing is fun, breeding is fun. I mean, I enjoy it. I look forward to a show. I can't wait to go to a show now. But it's just you have to, it's hard in the beginning. It really is. It really is. And you just gotta be able to grow from it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree with that. Anybody else have anything you want to go ahead, Raul?
I can probably talk more about showing than breeding. I've frankly only had one litter of my own. It was right before medical school, so I started out in juniors. So I've done more of my experience has been with showing, and it's definitely something that builds toughness. You really have to be passionate and willing to take a beating, because especially coming from no dog show background, no one knew who I was. You have to be honest, or I guess we all have to be honest. Like a good chunk of the dog show community are not the most welcoming. It really teaches you the character of discipline and wanting to improve yourself if it's what you really want to do. And I think it's a valuable tool to just grow as a person and grow as a professional, grow as a human being. And my experiences showing in juniors and onward have helped me to who I am today. It's helped me with work. It's helped me with a lot. In terms of breeding, I think my experience with breeding has just more been kind of like connecting with my mentors, picking their brain, and finally seeing what their thought process is when it comes to breeding the dogs that I've admired, just kind of circling around previous topics.
All right, Emmy.
Yeah, so I interpreted this question kind of as my progression of both breeding and showing. And kind of like I mentioned in my intro, when I was in junior showmanship, I was all about the showing and I was go, go, go. As soon as I graduated from high school and went to college, my priorities definitely reshifted. I went to UC San Diego, and during that time, I mean, I was involved in extracurriculars. I was like in a science and engineering sorority, got involved in kind of other aspects of my life beyond just dog shows. But with that said, it's always been a part of my life. It's always been something that I've come back to, that I've stuck with, even when, as some people have mentioned previously, the dog show world has been less welcoming. But with that said, it's kind of always just been, if you're really passionate about something, you'll find a way to make it work. So now, again, I used to go to dog shows every single weekend. My weekends were dominated by traveling with handlers and my mentors and so on and so forth. And I couldn't have imagined missing a Westminster, Royal Canin now, or DCA. And I had to think about it. I'm like, wow, DCA is like what I prioritize now as I'm moving forward as a young breeder. But even still, like I would say nowadays I'm able to go about every other year just because of my career as a high school science teacher, which is nice because I get vacations, summer vacation. Right now I'm teaching from home. But it's kind of something that as you evolve, kind of going from a young junior handler to a young breeder, your priorities have to shift. And with that said, I think something to keep in mind is why you want to breed. I would hope, and I think that this is the case, at least on this panel, and the majority of young breeders, is that you're trying to better the breed versus just try to win at the next show. There are some people that kind of very much value that next win. But with that said, just kind of keeping everything into perspective, for me, the past couple of years in general has really been eye-opening because, I mean, just for example, in standard wires, my first co-bred litter with Judy was in 2012. And we had such high expectations for the litter. Actually, it was a beautiful litter. We had one that was in the top 10 for multiple years, best of varieties, group placements. The others finished very much easily. But between college, Judy kind of waning down and kind of waiting for me to take over the ropes, as well as the bitch in the litter was diagnosed with allergies. Nothing crazy, but at the same time, it's kind of like, do you want to perpetuate in your breeding program? So with that said, we made the decision not to breed her. And it kind of put us at a dead end. And that's kind of where Shirley Ray graciously kind of stepped in, gave us our current bitch, and then Fred and Carol Vogel as well. I mean, everyone's health is kind of wavering, and we're kind of tackling best how to kind of progress their breeding programs as well as kind of further mine independently. So with that said, it's just something that your priorities shift as you get older, I think, because this is for the most part a young breeder forum. And for me, at least, my perspective has gone from going to every show, seeing all my friends every single weekend, which was great. I mean, I was #1 hound junior for like 3 years, but nowadays I'm like, wow, some people don't even know who I am at the normal Albright shows anymore because I'm not there every weekend.
Well, let's segue into because that is one of the questions. What are your challenges today with showing and breeding? You know, you are young. So many people say, where are young people? And I'm always like, they're at work. You know, you're just coming out of college or building careers or starting families or wanting to travel. You know, having dogs is a major responsibility, and it's hard to balance all that with some other aspects in life. You know, so many of our people are retired when they get into dogs because they've had their kids or raised their families or done everything they've wanted to do, and now this is kind of the next thing. So let's talk about that. What are some of the challenges you feel like that you have personally with showing and breeding and being so young? Jordan, I'm going to start with you if that's okay, because I know you guys have started just recently, you know, started a family within the last few years, and I know that has changed what you've done with your breeding and showing.
Absolutely. It's definitely been difficult to have like a work and home life balance. I work a full-time job at an emergency veterinary clinic, and I've been there for about 10 years. And at home, I have a 5-year-old and a husband and pets and dogs and chickens. And it's definitely hard to keep a balance of all that and maintain a breeding program. And what I've been doing mostly is I'm helping with my local club with my husband, and we're pretty active as far as their events that they hold. So that keeps us also a bit extra busy. But in the meantime, when I do go to those shows and I do have that time, I take the time to research more pedigrees and thinking of ways to improve my breeding program as well as my own lines in the future, but also like helping moving forward as far as like educating the public as well. But having all that balancing out is definitely difficult. And like how others have said, like you have to be able to maintain it all. And I think since being out of juniors and having a career, I've looked more towards the breeding aspect of it rather than the showing. Like Emmy said, I look forward more to like the specialties or the national rather than the all breed shows anymore. They're just more fun. You have more friends that know your dogs and you interact with them for years and years, and you just make those relationships. So I think overall it's difficult, but you got to make it work.
Absolutely. Amber, I know that, you know, you've recently, when you came back and started a big time career in Chicago, tell us about that.
Yeah, so right now I am a project manager at a medical spa called Spa Derma in Chicago. So there was a point in my life where I was maybe considering like wanting to go into handling, but I've always just felt like I have the most fun when I'm showing my own dogs, when I've bred my own dogs. And that's always just been kind of my passion. These are my pets. Like at the end of the day, these dogs sleep with me. You know, these are my therapy. So for me, the shows have kind of been less important. I get more excited about going to DCA, going to big shows like even abroad, like World Dog Shows I've been to twice. The thought of going to more international shows with my dogs is really exciting. Westminster, Eukanuba. So those kind of stages, platforms are kind of the ones that I prioritize for, that I would prefer to spend my money on, which is kind of sad because the small dog shows have just gotten smaller. So for me, living in Chicago, I can only have so many dogs, and that's why it's so important that I have to be honest with what I have. You know, I've imported several bitches, you know, I've had dogs where I'm growing them out, I hope to breed them, and they just don't turn out. And it's just kind of a decision that I've had to make multiple times in placing those dogs in great pet homes. But I think now more than ever, just because of the fact that we can't breed on the level that people used to, we have to partner with others even more in trying to kind of advance the breed. So there's a lot more collaborations that have to happen, co-ownerships, and just people working together. So for me, that's been my focus, is just trying to be as creative as possible with kind of the limitations of my lifestyle. I love living in the city. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. So you have to get really creative with it, and it is a big challenge. It's difficult, but somehow I've managed over the years. But there's always, you know, that desire for more. It's just really tough. You know, it's a tough thing.
Thank you, Brandon. Let's go down to you. I know that, you know, like a lot of us, me included, young people, me too, balancing, you know, a full-time career with trying to have a breeding program and showing. You know, what do you do?
It's tricky. I mean, it's because I'm a groomer, so basically I have to take off to go to shows, and one it's, you know, you have to find someone to, which I'm sure a lot of people have to do this anyway, but you have to find somebody to care for your dogs while you're gone, somebody who is trustworthy. Thankfully, I do have trustworthy people who I think my dogs love more than me at times. It's hard, but it's hard to set that time to, you know, you work all day, you're tired, you just want to, sometimes you just want to come in and just de-stress, and then you got to take care of animals, which, you know, hey, that's part of the territory. If you wanted to do it, you have to do it. And the dog should not suffer for it. So, but it's hard. It is hard because you want to reach your goals, and you have goals set out and you want to reach them, but then at the same time you have to go to work, you have to pay your bills, and you know, like everybody else. But it is a little different for us because of the fact that we are working, I think we're working a little bit more in a sense because of the fact that, you know, we are younger. We do have to pay house notes and car notes, and not say other people don't, but I think it's just more on us to try to keep all that going, and then focusing on your breeding program. You have to sit down and do your research. You have to talk with these other breeders, look at these other dogs, have to find time to go look at other dogs if you can, or just it's just a harder situation. I'm trying to explain the best I can, but it's just I think there's maybe a little pressure for us that's on us because we are trying to elevate ourselves in our careers and in our breeding programs. So it's just a little bit harder.
Yeah, I agree with you. Talking about being busy all the time, Raul, I know that, you know, you're a doctor, and I can only imagine, especially with everything that's going on right now, how busy you are. So how hard is that for you right now to try to balance showing and working full time?
Well, I haven't been active at all in dog shows since starting medical school. My first couple of years, I pretty much stuck to mentoring juniors back in Puerto Rico. Whenever I had a chance to get back, I would go and practice and kind of mentor the juniors, and that was just kind of my transition out of really showing. I felt that I couldn't really participate at the high level that I wanted. I couldn't read as many litters, or as I could read every year as I wanted to do. So I decided to really focus on my career so that eventually I get back. So hopefully I'm planning on starting late this year or next year, head back to the show ring. In terms of reading, Kim Vidrine and Paula Carter have a huge blessing just partnering with the dogs that came out of my first litter. They've kind of continued that line, helped me with that, and just kind of have so I have dogs that my dogs are behind, or dogs that are under my name, so I can kind of still be part of the dog show community. But in terms of dog showing, it's painful to say that I haven't been in the ring in maybe 5 years.
Yeah, sometimes with that, you know, being young and having to choose career. You know, you have to prioritize and what's in your best interest for your future. And I think that's really, really smart. I think sometimes people who are retired doing this, you know, they've done their life, sometimes they forget. So, and some of them are, you know, people are mostly good, but it is hard. But Kim, your situation's a little bit different. You're coming in towards the end because you did raise your, you know, continuing to raise your family and raise your family before you got started. So maybe share with us how that works.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 49 years old, and my oldest son will be 22 in about 3 weeks. And I have an 18-year-old and a 16-year-old. So, you know, while they're not small, they're very, very busy. They are very, very busy teenagers. And for me, you know, I don't want to miss what is going on with them. You have one chance. For me, I have 3 boys. So in my mind, I have, you know, one chance to make a man. And, you know, that man will be, you know, somebody's husband, somebody's father. So, you know, that is my priority. So, you know, kind of like Amber said, she goes to specialty shows. You know, she really picks and chooses where she goes and where she spends her time and effort and money. Well, that's what I do too, you know, right now. And, you know, as time goes, there will be, you know, more time for me to do, you know, more with breeding and showing. I have had dogs that I've bred here in my home. They're very young. All of them are under 2 years of age, so they haven't quite gotten out into the show ring just yet, but they are waiting in the wings to do so with their owners. Still hope to have Tyler show one of them that's in Virginia. But we just, you know, you kind of have to bide your time. There's a time and a place for everything. And, you know, for me, my priorities are with, you know, my 3 sons. So, you know, I, you know, unfortunately won't be able to see everybody very often. You know, I will choose to go to the baseball game. I will choose to go to the cross country meet. You know, that's what I'm going to do. So it's, you know, kind of when I can make it type thing. And, you know, in the midst of all that, I've still been able to finish dogs. I've still been able to breed them. But, you know, hopefully we'll be able to ramp up a little bit more and see a little bit more from Smoke Rise Dachshunds as time goes on. There'll be time. There'll be time.
Excellent. Thanks. Tyler, I know that, you know, you're out on the road all the time, so you're hitting the dog shows quite frequently, but, you know, once you get started again after all this, how is that really affecting how you decide your breeding program?
I would say my situation is really fortunate. You know, I have wonderful people here at home with Billy Garodner, of course, Aaron Nesbitt, and my partner, Joe Matheny. Joe is probably the most wonderful person I could ever hope to be with as far as our relationship and our passion that we share for the dogs. You know, we shared a good amount of time on the road the past year while I was campaigning the Dandy Dinmont Terrier bitch Darcy. And then we made the decision early this year that our priority would be to breed the bitches that we had. And, you know, he also has an interest in the Japanese chin. So that's not a litter or a breed that you can really go far when they're born. There's a lot of sleepless nights with them and tube feeding, and it's just a lot more intense. So it happened to be good timing that he was able to whelp and raise our standard wire litter. You know, we plan to kind of focus on that throughout the year. We don't know when we're going to be back at shows. We hope it's sooner than later, but we realize that right now our focus and priority is going to be to breed the bitches we have and focus on what we have going on now. And it's a sort of a trade-off. You know, we are in a much more interesting position, I think, being professional handlers, that we can choose to have one of us go on the road and one of us stay home. So we don't really have to put our breeding programs on any type of back burner, fortunately. And I don't think that that's often the case. And I don't think it's always the case for all professional handlers who don't have help at home. But I, you know, hope that we can kind of move things forward. All of our dogs right now that we have are pretty young. Our mini wire bitches are young, so we're just sort of letting them grow up and hope to get them finished this year. We'll watch our standard wire puppies grow and just sort of make plans as we figure things out, you know, with what's happening with the current state of dog shows and where we're going to be. And I don't project that we'll be back before the end of summer. And especially with having an 80-year-old at home, we can't risk going out and bringing something back. And Billy is a large priority for us, and making sure his health and welfare is most important. So we'll just sort of play it by ear and, you know, kind of enjoy what we're doing right now and enjoy our little farmette that we've created here in Virginia.
Excellent. And Emmy, I know that you mention, that you're teaching full time and, have just newly married and are trying to do, breeding, get ready this week and all of that. So do you want to add anything else to what you've said about trying to balance that in your life?
Yeah, so in California, I mean, as crazy as our world situation is right now, I mean, Raul's working around the clock. We're all kind of stuck at home, and it's weird to say because I'm still teaching, but it's distance learning where I'm doing the Zoom office hours and so on and so forth. But with that said, it almost like made me slow down and realize I'm like, wow, I don't know if I could even have been able to do this breeding, or if it would have been much more difficult to complete had I still been teaching full time. My husband, who's a business insurance auditor, he just finished up. End of April is what's considered busy season, where he works 70 plus hours a week on a good week. So with that said, it's kind of like we're just getting started in our careers. Fortunately, I am able to be doing the progesterone test right now and kind of balancing everything. But even without this crazy COVID-19 situation, I mean, as a young professional, I'm exhausted when I get home from work. And there have been many times where I prioritize specialty shows now. I mean, I was so looking forward to DCA. Now I have the plane tickets rescheduled and hope that everything's good by October. But I mean, there's been multiple times where I'll be working, and I mean, now I'm even more involved at my high school with next year I'm starting my master's program, just to add something else into the craziness. I'm starting a new health pathway at my high school. So I'll have after school meetings, and there have been multiple times where I'm also a member, recording secretary for Dachshund Club of California now, where we're trying to set up for our big specialty show, and I'm like scrambling to get on the road to go and help. And then we do a full weekend, 4 shows in 3 days, where I'm just like, it is exhausting to balance career, social life. My husband still wants to travel, do a bunch of cool other stuff that's not related to dogs, which totally on board with. But with that said, it's just kind of like the daily struggle of, I'm passionate about dachshunds. I love my husband. Eventually, people keep on asking, we will be starting a family soon. So it's kind of like, that's something else to throw into the mix. And I think everyone's story is, just because I think I'm the last one on this question, it's kind of like, we're finding ways to do it at our own pace. And I think kind of like the big thing is attend your specialty shows, attend DCA, reach out to people for support. But it is true, like the all breed shows, when I go towards them now, they are starting to decline, and it is something to consider in future generations as we can attend.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate you guys sharing your thought on that. It is very difficult, and I've been teaching for 21 years now, and I started showing dogs maybe when I was a second year, third year teacher, and I've always had to pick and choose. It's been very difficult. I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and I told him one of the things, and this is the next question I'm going to ask, is what's on your bucket list? And I said, one of the things on my bucket list is to, handle myself to a best in specialty. And they're like, you don't have one of those? And I was like, up until Steve put one on Harlan, I didn't have one because I couldn't go to the specialties on Fridays because I had to work. That were some of my choices that I had to do. And so I've had to get creative, and thank God for Steve and other people taking my dogs out so that I could work and they could still be shown. But it's what you said, you figure out how to make it work, but you have to prioritize, because, a career is longevity, and the dogs can come later. But I appreciate y'all's thoughts on that. Thank you so much. Let's go into that. Let's talk about some of the things that are on your bucket list in dogs, whether it's that big best in specialty at DCA or a Westminster variety win or anything. All of our goals are different. I know when you're first starting out, a variety at this show is just a big deal, and then you move up to other things. So what are some of your bucket lists in dogs? Go ahead, Tyler.
Well, this past year, I should say, I reached my first milestone, which was my first best in show with the Dandy Dinmont bitch that we were showing. And that was a huge honor. I never in a million years thought it would happen on a weekend where I was showing a rare breed, and I went back-to-back best in shows with a almost 8-year-old Dandy bitch. in my own breeding, I hope to accomplish that with breeding my own best in show winner. Most importantly, though, I think the highlight or something that I look forward to the most is exhibiting and bred by exhibitor at the national, and taking something that I've created and presenting that at that level. I do think that our national is probably the pinnacle of our breed, and one of the best national specialties I've ever attended, and certainly something that, for me, that's my ultimate goal, is going and winning best bred by or winning winner's dog or winner's bitch from the bred by class.
Absolutely. Anybody else have to add to that? Jordan?
I definitely have to agree with Tyler that, like, sure, everyone wants to go to Westminster and win a best in show, but I also agree that winning at DCA with like a bred by thing is more prestigious than any other win, because like Tyler said, it's like the pinnacle of our breed. It's the most prestigious thing we can have in our breed, and the quality is probably the best in the country, and you can't get better than that. I mean, sure, everyone wants to go to Westminster and win, and that's great, but I think for me, honestly, it's the breed win at like DCA.
Absolutely. Okay, Raul.
I think short term for me would obviously be first to get back into the show ring. Like I said, I plan on hopefully doing that within the next year. My ultimate goal for one day someone consider me a mentor. Years down the line, be having a forum like this and my name popping up as a mentor, that I can influence someone enough that they continue to align on their own. And I also would like to give back to juniors. I mean, I started with juniors. Being a junior has made me into the person I am today, like my experiences in juniors. So I would eventually want to start judging all breed, judging juniors, giving back to juniors, and kind of bringing that back. I was at just a spectator at the dog show recently, and there was only one junior. When I was showing, even in the small shows in Puerto Rico, there was at least 12. When I was at the World Dog Show in Mexico, I think might have been over 100. Like it was something that it was such a big deal, and it was just kind of concerning or heartbreaking to see such an important aspect of my life just kind of declining like that. So that's something that I would definitely want to influence in the future. Just take on people that are passionate not only about dachshunds but of dog shows in general, and kind of mentor them into their goals and teach them what I've learned so far.
Excellent. Anybody else want to add to that? Want to share your bucket list stuff, Amber?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Raul, that's awesome. I loved your piece about like wanting to mentor someone else in juniors. That's something I would love to do down the road, just because I had like a village raise me in the dog shows, and that was so valuable for me. So if I could ever do that for someone else, that would be incredible. But for the bucket list, Cheddar kind of like crossed off a lot of my bucket list items. So for me, I am really passionate about like sharing our bloodlines across the world and collaborating with other breeders and bloodlines outside of the US. I think like sometimes we kind of live in a bubble a little bit. And so for me, if I were to breed a World Dog Show Best of Breed winner, I think that's on my bucket list. I do know that the standards are different, obviously, but not that different. One dog in particular that is a litter mate to Cheddar, it's Wunderbar Purple Haze. We sold to Ornbriget's Kennel, which is Jill and Elizabeth Roden in Sweden. And they bred her, and in her litter, they had Ornbriget's Superstar. And he actually won Crufts in 2019. He was Best of Breed winner, World Dog Show winner in 2018, I believe, as well. So I know it's not too far-fetched, but for me, just being on a different stage like that and being able to produce a dog that can win in that setting as well, in addition to the US, is something that I really strive for.
Emmy?
Yeah, so I guess mine, I'm going from the personal aspect. I've been fortunate enough that because of, obviously, my mother, Kristen Syhos Williams, was the primary kinder tackle standard smooth, especially during my college years. I kind of always have just been giving feedbacks on litters and showing. So I've gone winner's dog from the bred by exhibitor class at DCA, award of merits. So I guess the bucket list for me would be to kind of go to the next step, either best variety or my wildest dreams, one day best of breed at DCA with my homebred bred by exhibitor. And with that said, just because I'm kind of continuing, the schoolhouse standard wire line has been long established by Judy Anderson. With that said, because of her decline over the last year, and then just kind of our friendship down the road for the last decade, I have had so many conversations with her about what we want the future of the breeding program to look like. So with that said, I think the bucket list item would actually be doing that with one of the future puppies from the continuation of this breeding program. Because I really, as I've been talking about with Fred and Carol, Shirley Ray, kind of everyone that's kind of reached out as I've honestly been grieving Judy's loss. I don't want to let her down, but at the same time, that's kind of like a bucket list item is I want to leave something that she would be proud of. And then one last thing, just because we haven't talked about field trials yet, my mom is the one that always wins at field trials since we started. I know, I see Jordan. I am like consistent, like third, fourth place. She's the one that put the first place on my standard wire bit. She's the one that's gone absolutes with the dogs that we've bred since we got started about 5 years ago, I think. So another one would be to go absolute with myself as a handler, because it's kind of like I'm the confirmation side, she's the field trial side now. And I'm a little jealous of that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Brandon, what do you think? You have some bucket list items?
Well, I have a few. Since I show an owner handler, I do want to. One of my bucket lists is to get a best in show owner handler. I've come close a few times, got a few group ones, but not there yet. It's coming. Like everybody, I would love to go to Westminster. That's been a dream of mine since I was a kid. So I would love to fulfill that. I would love to get a placement, breed win, or variety win. I would love that, be able to show in the groups. I would love to go to DCA, and I would love to go and have a placement. I would love to be a variety winner at DCA. Award of merit, it's just something. I mean, I feel like as my time goes on, I will have even more. My bucket list will get higher and higher, but I feel I do want to. Those are the few things that I do strive for right now. I do want to, and also I also thought about this as well. I thought I wanted to have get an ROM on a bred by a bitch of mine. So that is a plan of mine in the future. Maybe not right now, but maybe in the future it will be a bucket list item to scratch off.
I think that sounds great. Kim, what about you? Do you have some bucket list items?
Oh, I'm kind of like everybody else. I would love to win a best in show, maybe a best in specialty show on a homebred dog. And would love to win the variety at DCA one day. So any of those things, just I think we can all just keep working toward, that, never giving up, keeping it in your mind, having the vision, and keep working toward making it plain. So I think it'll work.
I love those. I think those are all amazing goals. Even though I've been in it a while and I've had some great things crossed off my bucket list more recently in the last year or two with Harlot, there's still things I really, really want to do. And so I always like to ask young people what their goals are, because I know that I had so many and still have so many. I think they're amazing. So, and it's like Kim said, I'm real big on don't ever give up, don't quit, keep chipping at it, keep working. And I think that's amazing. Let's talk about, what do you think some of the problem areas in our breed are today? Just dachshunds in general, whether it's conformation or probably more specific conformation. What are your thoughts on that, being a younger generation coming up, Raul?
I think one problem, and it's at least been a problem since I've started with Dachshunds. So I started showing in Puerto Rico. So I did more international shows than shows in the US. And it's hard being in a breed where there's this stigma that there has to be a huge or marked difference between a European and a US or an American bred dachshund, and that the dogs have to look different, groom differently. So if you want to show internationally or show at at an international level with dachshunds, there's certain tweaks that you're going to have to do in your breeding program. At least what I've seen, especially in long hairs, either from the grooming to leg length, etc. I think that's something that I wish to see change in my lifetime. That the standard is the standard regardless of what country. And also, like I said, I wish we could see more overall participation in dog shows, like bigger numbers. I just remembering when I was starting, dog shows was such a big thing internationally and even locally, that you would have in Puerto Rico, which might seem like a small number, would have 300 dogs. Now you can find shows under 100 dogs in Puerto Rico, or even in local shows. I just hope to see more participation and more of a window for people to thrive with this breed overseas. So I feel like that would also help the gene pool, which I think is a big concern. If you could kind of standardize how the dog should look internationally, and you can start breeding with breeders overseas and get consistent winners, I think that we would fix a huge problem that we've been seeing in the breed, which is a very short gene pool, at least in standard long hairs, which is what I have experience with.
Excellent. Anybody? Yeah, Emmy.
Yeah, so obviously I'm coming originally from like a smooth aspect, but I think, now I forget, we've been talking for so long, but I think it was Tyler that mentioned earlier that the Dachshund is one breed. We have 3 varieties, we have 2 sizes, but they're one breed, one standard. And with that said, again, I'm getting started continuing on in standard wires, and I've shown standard longs. I've basically shown all coats, all sizes over the years. And I think something to keep in mind is, for instance, structure is so important. Structure follows function. There's a reason why dachshunds need to have the correct oval forechest. And with that said, also not just nitpicking and focusing on one structural fault, for example. I know fault judging from some people as a whole, I would say in the entire sport of dogs, not just dachshunds, is a problem. So with that said, I mean, in terms of the other varieties, I would love to kind of have the dachshund variety, or dachshund breed as a whole, I should say, kind of unite on that. I know coming from the standard wire aspect and then also showing in longs, there have been several times where I have thought this dog was absolutely stunning. And then I go to put my hands on it, and for example, its front is just full of coat, whether it's the long hair, you just go in and there's nothing to it, or the wire is perfectly sculpted from a distance. For me, especially in standard wires, they should look like smooth from a distance. So the perfused coat, I would love to minimize as people are kind of looking to advance the breed. That's one of my things in overall, in terms of also making sure that the proper front assembly is there, ideally longer ribbing and keel, et cetera, et cetera. But just something that I've learned over the years as well that I think is a recurring problem is a lot of people are quick to point out the faults in other people's dogs, aka fault judging, and not necessarily looking critically at their own dogs. For me, just I think because I kind of was able to work for multiple handlers over my years, I kind of know basic dog conformation as a whole. And with that said, yes, dachshunds, like for example, you need to have an emphasis on the front. We are a front breed, but don't just let a crappy rear go through the generations, because again, dachshunds were bred to hunt. They need to have that structure, front and rear. So with that said, just kind of opening your eyes and not being overly critical of other people's breeding programs, but at the same time being critical of your own to advance towards the next generation.
Excellent. Thank you so much. All right, we'll go Tyler and then Amber.
So kind of going off of what Emmy just said, we are a breed that puts a lot of emphasis on front structure, and certainly that is a hallmark of our breed. But I think so often, so many times people, like she said, forget the rear and they forget the overall type and balance. You can have a dachshund with a beautiful front, but if the front is all it has to offer that makes it a dachshund, to me, it's not a dachshund. I want to look at a dog who has a beautiful layback of shoulder, who has that beautiful forechest, that beautiful ribbing and keel, strong, sound, well-muscled rear, and a headpiece. I'm a headhunter. I like to look at a dog with a pretty head because it's the first thing you usually see. So for me, it's something that I remember and try to be cognizant of when I'm looking at dogs or evaluating puppies or discussing dogs with other people, is that they can't just be a front. They can't just be a head. They can't just be, one piece. It's the whole package of the dog. And remembering that our breed should, if you were to take and black out the silhouette, could you tell that it's a dachshund, no matter what coat, what size, whatever? It should look like a dachshund. The type is the most important thing to me, and something that I put a lot of emphasis on in what I'm working with and what I want. And I think that that's something that we just have to keep sight of, and making sure that, especially coming from the miniature perspective, we can have miniatures that are under 11 pounds, but do they look like toy dogs? We still want them to look like little hounds. They need to look like a standard in miniature. And that's a hard thing to accomplish. And I commend the breeders who have successfully done that. I personally don't fault a dog who's a little over 11 pounds. If they're a sound, quality, typey dog, that's more important to me than just getting under 11. But also remembering that our goal is to be 11 pounds or under. And that for me is something that I just think about a lot with decisions I make and dogs that I look at and what I put value and importance on myself.
Excellent. Thank you, Tyler. All right, Amber.
Yeah, for me, I think just kind of piggybacking on what Emmy said, as far as just kind of like making sure we're not deviating from like dachshunds and just like what they're supposed to be as far as their type. I think as far as standard long hairs, I feel like we are kind of getting a little bit too extreme in ways. We're drawn to that fancy dog, the dog with like lots of great coat, maybe an extreme head, ears, very long angles. And we need to remember that these dogs were bred to hunt badgers. Like these dogs are hunting dogs. We need to make sure that we're feeling what's under the coat. We need to make sure in a best of breed lineup, at a specialty, that the long, smooth, and wire, look similar, that they look like smooths, that we don't have a long hair that's just kind of very extreme and standing out. I was with Carlos yesterday, actually, at his kennel, and he actually put it into words like better than I can. So I'm just going to steal this from him. He told this to me yesterday. We were kind of talking about it, but he was like, a dachshund is essentially the cake. So the structure of the dog, the actual, bones, how it moves, everything is the cake. It's the foundation. The frosting is everything else. It's your coat, it's your tail set, it's the things that you can fix in one breeding. But I think right now we're focusing a little bit too much on the frosting and not as much on the cake, especially like in standard long hairs. At least that's what I notice. So that's kind of what I am trying to make sure that I kind of keep that in the back of my mind, is more cake, less frosting.
Excellent. Does anybody else want to pitch your opinion in on what we were seeing out there, what we think needs to be more of our priority? Go ahead, Kim.
Well, I just want to say something about temperament. Since most of mine go to families with children, dogs that can be solid and can, step in front of their child if they need to, but be very loving, wonderful companions, not too high strung, not too difficult to live with. And so I put a lot, I guess, because I have so many young people through my home, and always have. I have 3 sons, so I have kids in and out all the time. And I, need for, my animals who live here to be able to deal with the noise, that comes along with that, the movements that come along with that. And that's what I like to, produce and send out into the world, is kind of a dog who can be a wonderful companion and double as a show dog a few weekends a year, but that can really be a family, companion. So, I do like the whole package. I can hear Paula Carter saying, look at the whole dog, I do like looking at the whole package, but I also, the temperament is something that is really very important to me personally. So.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I think that's an excellent point. Thank you. Jordan, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I agree with like Kim saying that you have to look at the whole package. You want to look at the whole dog. A lot of people are like the older generation, just look at the front. Like you have to look at the dogs as if they need to do their job. I take dogs out to field trials and they need to be able to go in the field and walk miles and miles all day long. I don't want to have to carry them. They're heavy standards. They should be able to do that job and enjoy it. And, they have to have that movement, that strong rear to power them through. They have to be able to get down in the holes like they used to. And I do earth dog too, so they got to fit in those boxes. So I see the whole picture, but I also see the structure as a whole doing their job. And going off what Kim said too is like the temperament has to be there. I have a young son. I take my dog with me to work every day, and I have people at my work saying, your dogs have the best temperaments, but I strive to make sure that they're exposed to things like that.
Right.
That's very important, that you want sound temperaments to go into pet homes, because these are also companions. Like they live with us, they're around our kids, they're around our families, we take them to events. They need to be able to do their jobs and be lovely companions too.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
that's good. Brandon, what about you? What do you think?
To kind of piggyback off of everybody, I do see a lot of kennel blindness. There's dogs that are, you see a lot of tummy tappers, you see a lot of forward fronts, soft top lines, and we just have to focus on learning the standard and breeding the dogs the way that how they should conform. Temperament is also important. A lot of people, I don't think a lot of people remember, especially with minis. I'm more in minis, so I think people may think that minis are not able to do the same thing as standards, and that's not true. They are capable of doing the same thing as standards. So they are a working dog. They're just a little working dog. So they should be able to form, follow, function. So they should be able to be put together correctly and do what they were supposed to do. So I just feel like kennel blindness is a real thing. I think it's just people need to really just, and I'm one too, got to sit down and study the standard even more to make sure that I'm producing something that is actually close to being correct and to make it better.
Excellent. Thank you guys so much. Before I go towards our last question, I'm just going to pop through the feed really fast. I think we've hit on everything people were asking about. Let's see. What do you think the point comes where your mentor or the person you got your dogs from no longer have control of what you do with the puppies or the breedings? We kind of talked about that a little bit. If anyone has anything to add to that, I wanted to make sure I asked that. Does anybody have anything to kind of add what we already said before? I think we kind of covered that. Let's go to the very last question. You guys have been amazing today. Thank you so much. I asked this to the last panel. I'm going to ask it to you. What does the future of dachshunds look like? What do you think? think that looks like for our breed that we love so much? And what are your plans for the future? What does the future of Dachshunds look like to you? Go ahead, Jordan.
For me, when I got that question, the first word that came to mind was grim. Because without mentorship and education for the current breeders we have in our generation, I think there won't be much future. I think we need the knowledge and the insight from the older generations, because otherwise, when they're gone, that information is lost with them. And I think we need that mentorship and education for the future breeders right now. I see that is hugely lacking, and I feel like that's like my soapbox, like education, mentorship. I feel like everyone in our breed really, really needs that. And that kind of ties in with our last question, like what are the faults we're seeing? And I think we're seeing that because of lack of education and mentorship with our generation. As far as like my plans for the future, I plan to add like a foundation bitch to my breeding program and setting that foundation for what I like as far as breed type, keeping it like consistent by line breeding and educating the future generations, whether it's in my club or local junior handlers, and because they're going to take over for me someday. And I want to make sure that that foundation is set.
Excellent. Thank you. Amber, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, for me, grim, I agree with Jordan. I mean, being a young breeder, having lived like in Portland and Chicago and these city markets, just like my friends and peers and everyone, I mean, when I would tell them like I was breeding a litter or something, they would be like, really? You're breeding a litter? Like, why are you breeding a litter? Are you trying to make money? You know, there's dogs that need to be adopted in the shelter. And that's what scares me. And I have struggled with some litters, like placing pet dogs. I haven't really had problems with placing them, you know, within the dog show community and show homes, but finding homes that even want a standard long-haired dachshund, they don't even know what the breed is. They don't know that this is like the best breed ever, you know, and they don't know the value of buying from a breeder. I've given dogs away. I had someone name my puppy Coupon because he was free. And he thought it was funny. And it's just, that scares me. So I think for me, the focus is trying to promote our breed and preserve our breed the way everyone, you know, has built these bloodlines, wants it to be, you know, kept on. But we need to make sure that there's still people around that want these dogs, that will value these dogs. We need to make sure we band together, because there's going to be a generation that's not going to be here soon, and we need to make sure that we are just preserving the breed, period, and just promoting the breed, being good breed ambassadors. So for me, that's what I'm really trying to focus on, is just educate the public about how great our breed is and why they should wait for that puppy, why they should, you know, buy from a breeder and form that relationship and things like that.
It's 5 o'clock.
That outside of the dachshund world, more so just the purebred dog world in the US specifically.
Excellent. All right, Emmy.
Yeah, so going off of what Amber and Jordan said, I don't think it's necessarily the future of our breed so much as the future of our sport. That's kind of the concern right now. I know, especially with shows not happening currently, that's kind of like an immediate danger. But coming from, again, working at a high school as a biology and anatomy physiology teacher, the general public, they think of purebred dogs in general as bad. Like, you should go out and support a rescue, which, again, we're not going to go off on that tangent in terms of how shelters are now basically empty. But with that said, I think just, again, like Amber said, talking to your friends, talking to your community. I personally, just as kind of like a small little glimmer of hope, for my last unit, I'm teaching genetics biology through the lens of canine evolution. So actually doing like how the different breeds have evolved over time. Originally, I was trying to beg my principal to bring in my 2 dachshunds that I have at home to kind of do kind of like a meet and greet public education. But I mean, you go to dog shows, and I mean, they're compared to, I would say, when I started 15, 20 years ago, I remember there were always families at shows. And actually, my mom's litter, or kennel name, sorry, is Kinder Teckle, children, dachshunds. We grew up with 5 kids. I was one of 5. Nowadays, you see people come to dog shows with families, and they're looked down on if they have a kid in a stroller because it could scare the dog. Which again, going back to Kim, dachshunds shouldn't be scared of strollers. That should not be a problem at dog shows. But with that said, it's kind of something that you need to be inviting of anyone that could be potentially interested in dog shows in general, as well as specifically our breed. If they want to meet your dogs, by all means, have them. I mean, there have been times where, as long as we're not too busy, my mother and I, when we're at shows, like, we'll literally like bring puppies out of the crates and put them in X pens, and we've had kids like just in the X pen playing. Now, with that said, it's kind of like there are people that don't know boundaries, and it's kind of like, okay, we don't have time right now. But in general, you want to reach out and welcome new people into the sport. And in terms of, sorry, I forget the last question. Was it my future?
Yeah, your future. What does your future look like?
Yeah, I just feel like I've been talking so much. But I mean, I think that's kind of something that I'll keep in mind working in education. I mean, my friends that I've had, they think it's weird as well that I breed and show dogs. But once I educate them, and again, because they're true friends, they get it. And I think that's just so important. In terms of the dachshund breed as a whole, again, like there's kind of, I feel, a divide between the older generation and the younger generation. I find myself particularly fortunate that Polly Fleming and Judy Anderson took me under their wing and thought I was cute and mentored me, but I'm not seeing that happen as much. So even though I'm busy at shows, I think personally that's kind of like a personal goal of mine. And actually talking about this today, whenever there's the next show, I want to kind of slow down and take the time and find someone new or talk to our current juniors, because there's actually some great juniors in the California area that show dachshunds that they're receiving support, but I would love to give them even more.
Excellent. Raul, let's go over to you. What do you think the future of dachshunds look like, and what are your plans for the future?
I think the rate limiting step to the success of the breed is a short gene pool in a very segmented community. And I think that's true in all breeds, but if you think about how limited the gene pool is, at least in standard long hairs, and on top of that, you have groups of people that don't talk to each other, refuse to collaborate in breedings, are overly critical of what each other breeds. I think that is what's being the most detrimental to the breed. We had mentioned time and time again how the breeders of the past would have large kennels, and they could afford to be a little cliquey. They could afford to be overly critical because they had the numbers, they had the volume. We unfortunately don't have that anymore. So I think now more than ever, it's important to not only understand the genetics and the structure or the anatomy of the dog and how to breed the ideal dachshund, but this is the sport. This is something that we all do because we're passionate about. It's something that we all have in common. It's something that we need to be more. We need to collaborate, be nicer to each other, and do it for the improvement. If we really do care about this breed and about this sport, then we should be able to set aside the differences and collaborate towards the breed. I think that mentorship is also something that has been lost. I think that there is a culture where we're overly protective of our dogs. If we have someone new that's not from the dog show community wanting to come in, it's nearly impossible. I have a neighbor that lives in my building that saw my 2 dachshunds 2 weeks after she saw the garden. She wanted to get involved in dogs, and she saw Burns in the Best in Show ring, saw my 2 dachshunds, and she's like, I've been wanting to get into dachshunds, and I've been making calls to X and Y different types of breeders and of different breeds, and they won't return a call. They'll flat out say no. And I think that we need to be more inviting to people that want to get into this. And we can't complain about having low numbers in dog shows or having people not want to be involved in dog shows or breeding or even taking our pets if we shun them or we reject them for not being part of the community already. I mean, we all started at one point. Not everyone started being born in a dog show family. So I think that those are the two big red flags that we're being faced with, that we just need to swallow our pride and be nicer and learn how to collaborate. In terms of where I see myself in dog shows and in dachshunds, I kind of alluded to earlier, is I am a real proponent of juniors. I am eternally grateful to the people that mentored me in juniors, and I would love to pay that forward. I would love to one day see those numbers go back up, and for it to be the culture where the top handlers would stop what they were doing and just watch the juniors ring and critique and coach from the sidelines. Like that's the kind of junior showmanship that I grew up with. In terms of dachshunds, I mean, like I said, Rochelle and Melanie Porter, Cheryl Sims, Stan Harrison, Kim Bedreen, Paula Carter, those are people that I wouldn't be here talking to you guys if it weren't for their mentorship. And I would love to pay that forward and continue that culture of mentorship and new people, old people, dachshund people, Vizsla people, any kind of breed. I feel like, you know, we're in dog shows to learn. We're in dog shows because we're passionate about it. And there's no room for arrogance or isolation in this sport. Otherwise, it's going to go extinct.
I agree. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. That's very well said. Kim, what do you think? What do you think the future, well, you and I have talked about this a lot. What do you think the future looks like, and what are your plans for the future?
Well, I would like to see more collaboration. You know, I worry some about the gene pool, like Raul was just saying. I know you and I, Lexa, have talked about what we might do in the future that would help us to have access to dogs that, you know, we have now in 25 years. What does that look like? Does that look like a semen bank that DCA has, kind of control of, and you apply for that semen to use it, you know, application, interview, something like that, you know. I don't know, but I would like to see us be able to have, access to the great ones, the ones that we all mentioned that we admired, you know, if we could have them today, you know, if only we could have them today to breed to. So, you know, how could we ensure that the great ones today we do have tomorrow? You know, because we want there to be a tomorrow. So, you know, what does that look like? Does that look like, you know, people making contributions to a semen bank that people can then access in 25 years when they say, you know, that Lexa Richmond had this dog and I really admire it, but she's not breeding anymore and that dog is long dead. You know, could we still access that dog if we did something today to ensure that we had that dog in the future for younger breeders to come along, you know, and use. So, you know, I kind of like to see that. I'd like to just see more cooperation, period. I would like to see people be more welcoming. I know when I took my boys to the first show, we had no idea what we were doing and nobody spoke to us, you know, nobody welcomed us, nobody did anything, you know, and that's kind of a shame. And, you know, I try really hard to take my dogs out to the baseball field, you know, out to the cross country meets. I want people to see this breed. It's wonderful. You know, the long hairs are fabulous. And I have people who, you know, have asked me, you know, for family pets because they can see mine, you know, and they are shocked to learn that they do anything else besides be, you know, a spoiled pet. So, you know, it kind of makes you think, you know, I have some people now who do have young children, who have grandchildren, you know, and those kids are interested in juniors, like, you know, all of you have been, you know, like my boys were for a short time. So I'd love to see us be able to really grab those people. And when they do come out, you know, for everybody to be kind, you know, to them, because you have no idea of the home you may miss because you were unkind or unwelcoming. You have no idea what you may miss, and wouldn't that be a shame? So, you know, I'd kind of like to see just more of that going forward. And, finding a way to preserve what we have for everybody to use tomorrow. I'm almost 50 years old, so in 25 years, I hope I have something that somebody might want to use. I hope that down the line when I'm 75, it's there, it's there and people have access to it. So, I'd like to see that. I really would. So we'll see.
That's great. Thanks, Kim. Brandon, you, and then we'll go over to Tyler. Brandon, can you hear me?
Hey, I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I feel like the breed is for the future of the breed. I think it's a little shaky. It's a little bit on shaky ground right now. I think that as a whole, we all have a common goal. We all have the common goal to follow the standard and breed the dog that is conforming to the standard. I think that part of the issue is that we can sometimes get too involved into the showing aspect and make it too much of a competition. I mean, it is, but at the same time, I think we kind of lose the goal of preserving the breed and get too focused in on that. And so some people tend to close doors and they're not willing to work with others to help better themselves or better their programs. So I think that as breeders of this breed, we all need to come together and work together, put aside differences and just work together. We all, at the end of the day, we have a common goal. We have the same passion, we have the same dream. Let's all work on it. In order for the breed to keep going and to even become even better, we have to work together. We have to.
Thank you, Brandon. All right, Tyler, I'll go over to you. What do you think the future of Dachshunds look like, and what are your plans for the future?
Well, I think that especially having this discussion with, this panel of younger breeders and new breeders, our future looks brighter than it probably could. I think that it's important for us all to remember that our times have changed. We can't have a kennel of 100 dogs like they did 25, 30 years ago. So there has to be a little more of an intelligent management of a breeding program. Like Amber has mentioned several times, you have to be critical. You have to look at your dogs very objectively and keep only the best. I know in mini wires, something we've discussed a lot has been the Lafora disorder. That's been sort of a newer discovery in our breed. And the conversation has been that of, well, if it's a carrier, get rid of it. Well, do we eliminate dogs that are a carrier from a gene pool, or do we breed them smart? Do we breed them selectively to dogs that are non-carriers? We shouldn't pigeonhole ourselves with certain things like that and say it's not an issue. It is an issue, but if we manage it smart and effectively, we can move away from it without completely eliminating good dogs. I think that being objective with breeding programs, and certainly this panel, wonderful people that are newer in the breed or have been in the breed, we have to just work together, like everyone said, be smart about it, focus on what our goals are. The most important thing is to always keep in mind your own personal goal. Don't be afraid to have your own opinion, your own identity in this breed. It's easy to fall into a camp, whatever breed, whatever kennel you've been with or whatever breeding program. You have to create your own camp. You have to create your own line and your own identity within this. And don't be afraid to be outspoken about what you like and what you want, but also be humble with respect to those that have been in the breed forever. I think of immediately, again, going back to long hairs, it seems like they tend to be pretty prevalent with a conversation. The Boondocks kennel, the Walmart dogs, those are kennels that are famous in our breed. Star Barrack and Liz Haywood, those are dogs that, you look back in pedigrees for generations and their name comes up over and over again. And so always keep in mind the future with respect to the past and what we've accomplished and where we are. And, one of my biggest pet peeves, and it's sort of a silly pet peeve, is running with dachshunds. I hate seeing people sprint around the ring with them like it's a sporting dog or it's a competition to race to the end of the line. Let them move out at their own pace. Show them as the breed they're supposed to be. This is not a breed that should be flying out at the end of the lead like an English. And I think that, that's, for me, my focus is always going to be to produce with the miniature wires a dog that truly looks like a standard in miniature, something that I'm proud to show that if you were to look at it from a photo, you'd have a hard time telling, is that standard or is that mini? Not because it's a big mini, but because it's a really quality bred miniature. So it's just something that I think about with my own plans for the future. And I think that we are in really good hands. And I think that it's important just to always respect those that have been in this longer than us. I think doing something like this or an open discussion at the national with that generation, not just via the video chat, but an open forum. I know that that's happened a couple times where there's been a breeders forum. I think that should be an emphasis at our national, where we open the floor and we have that full use of the ballroom where old breeders, new breeders, interested breeders, just general fanciers can come together and talk, an open discussion without the ugliness towards each other, or maybe the dislike for someone or their dogs or whatever the case may be, but a general discussion of our breed and its overall health and welfare long term.
Excellent. Well, I really appreciate all of y'all's thoughts and opinions today. And if you watched the feed from last week, you know, some of the trends that we're saying from the older generations and the younger generations are the same. And that, you know, I know me personally, after this panel discussion today, I feel better about the future. And one of the reasons I wanted to get all of us together was just to educate and put this out there, because we do have a lot of newer people coming into the breed that, you know, we don't know yet. And one of the things I do want to say wrapping up is, for anyone out there listening that had any kind of doubt towards the future or about our younger or newer breeders, is listening to this today, what I'm taking away is we have some amazingly talented and incredible and dedicated young people with a growth mindset to really push this breed forward. And I think you guys are all amazing, and the maturity and the expertise that you show at the level where you are is just amazing to me. And I love you guys. That's why I wanted to do this with you. And I hope that we continue to build relationships with each other and talk with each other, you know, all the Dachshund people, and, you know, really kind of cement our hold for this breed. That was one of the reasons I wanted to really do these talks and start a page and everything, because I felt like the education in our breed was lacking and we are not getting the attention that we deserve. And, you know, one of my personal frustrations is having a beautiful quality Dachshund walk in a group ring and be dismissed because a token beagle needed to get a placement, but a beautiful specimen of our breed was hitting the gate. And, you know, just to promote our breed and how are we going to move it forward and what are we going to do. So I thank you guys for, you know, being on this journey with all of us together. I think it is going to take all of us together to push our breed forward. And like I said, I think you guys are all amazing and talented, and I just really, really appreciate you being here for today. So with that, we're going to end this panel discussion. But before you guys leave, I'm going to stop the live feed first, and then we'll kind of wrap up between us really fast. It won't take very long, because I did promise you we would get done in under 2.5, and we're pushing that. So let me stop. Thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Okay, and that should have stopped. I think we should be good. Thank you guys so much. Really, I'm not just saying that because I think you're amazing. I just love working with people. You know, that's my school teacher background and hearing what everybody has to say. And I really do think you're amazingly talented in all the things you're doing. And, you know, what you can contribute to the breed, I think is so important. I don't know whose crazy face that is. It just popped up on my little iPad. Let me shut that. But
You'll see recording in the upper left, but
yeah, I'm recording it to my computer, but the live feed on Facebook should have stopped. I record them just because if something happens, at least we still have this where I can go post it later, but which is on the live feed now, so that's good.
okay, perfect. I wanted to say
these are where all the fun conversations have right here when I stop the live feed before and after.
Yeah.
oh, well, Tyler, what you said at the end is so perfect, because
yeah, you did.
Facebook Live is amazing, but honestly speaking, like the older generation that probably need to watch this, I would say the most, they're not on Facebook. So I mean, I don't know if, again, Lexa should share this here. Fingers crossed that everything goes according to plan and it happens. But I think having something like this in person would be a great addition.
mentioned.
Well, and that's kind of my plan for the history night, that Friday night. That's when we're doing the Judy Anderson celebration, and we're doing that in conjunction with that walkthrough on the history. And it's not going to be so much a seminar as a walkthrough, so you can generate your own conversations about dogs. And I'm hoping that's when a lot of those conversations will happen. And that way it's not so structured, but people can look through our little walkthrough time museum or whatever and see some of that. So
well, that's sort of what my thought with that is too. And I'm not trying to sound like a broken record, but I think that so many times we get in a position with the old guard or those that have been in the breed a lot longer, where they feel that, well, what do you know? How would you know what this is? Well, I think sometimes it's important for them too, with, as we said, with looking towards the future, but with respect to the past, we offer a new perspective. There are things that we see that are different. Let's manage things differently and with a fresh eye and without that jaded look. So,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there has to be this whole pay your dues thing has to stop.
Exactly.
Because
Yeah,
when I was in y'all's shoes,
All judging and critical of other breeding programs.
Exactly. Mhm.
and you really rob people's joy away from that, and I shared with Kim, when I'd been in the breed 2 years, and I took Jewel to Westminster, and we won that variety, and everyone was happy to my face, but I did have some old school people come out and be like, you just need to pay your dues. I'm like, I don't know what you want me to do any differently. I want to do this, and I'm determined, and I hope that's what we kind of put out there to new people, because we eat our own. We chase
We
off
do.
Yeah.
because they didn't do it just perfectly like what we said or we wanted. And I've told you, I've made that mistake as a mentor, and I've tried to be better at it each time. And almost where I hesitate to be a mentor to people because I've messed it up in the past. But I want to help and as much as I can. And I don't pretend to be any kind of breed expert at all. I'm still learning and everything. But it's what Tyler said: a new perspective. What are we doing? We're not driving the same cars we were 30 or 40 years ago.
Exactly.
And we've moved on, and the way we do dogs now is so much different. So I think that kind of came across. And if it didn't, feel free to get back in those comments on there and type it. I'm all about preaching your word, as long as it's respectful. I feel really strongly. I was just so tired of sitting here and not having this dachshund education. My frustration is there are people that are old school that are in charge of DCA that take that little piece and this is mine and I'm in charge of it. You don't get a say. You have to do it like I say. I will anoint you. Then you have the permission and the blessing of the organization. And that's ridiculous. We can't keep doing that. We're losing too many good people for people that want to do this.
And there are too many people who have other things to do with their time and their money, and they have other responsibilities, and if you make it too difficult, they will just say, this isn't worth my time, literally, because my time is valuable. What I can bring is valuable. So I don't, if I have to constantly fight, it isn't worth it to me to do that.
It's killing our breed, and not just our breed. I think dachshunds in general, but really with our dachshunds, stats for last year on Best in Shows for dachshunds were 3 smooths. I think it was 3 wires and 2 longs, and that was it. That's the stats for Best in Shows for dachshunds. And with all of our breeds, our varieties and coats and sizes, that's ridiculous. To me, that is unacceptable. So is that because of a quality problem or an education problem within? I think it's both. And if we don't open our mouth and start,
That's what I was saying earlier.
Well, just anecdotally, all breed judges, in California, we're seeing the same judges over and over and over again. Honestly speaking, that's kind of why I didn't say this on live, but I said I'm reprioritizing to specialty shows and DCA and so on, because it's like, I can't compete with the people that are out every single weekend handling dogs that, now we're not public, but may not be the best, but because judges are seeing them all the time.
Yeah, those cookie cutter dogs that are not good, that need to be on somebody's couch, just in a loving home somewhere. Those are the ones that are being rewarded constantly all the time.
And it's kind of discouraging for me because I've been involved my entire life, and I go to an all breed show that I don't look at the judges because it's close, and then they put up a dog that's not even characteristic of the breed. I'm just like, oh, okay, I'm
Yeah.
gonna save my
We
money
need-
and only do specialties.
We need more judges, guys. New judges. We
Mhm.
need
I
to become a judge.
Yeah.
You know, you guys
I mean-
have literally had my application done for 4 years and haven't submitted it. So I think
Yeah.
I would say,
mean-
and honestly, go for it. You know, I went for mine to
Yeah.
improve my breeding program, and now here I am, and it's helped so much. And just to see dogs and be out there, and you know, I say I do it. Anything that you can help to advance yourself, push yourself forward. And the other thing is like y'all said, and we all know this, but we're not doing it, is to be nice and get along. And for an example, because it's just us, you know, Emmy's mom and I don't always see eye to eye, and we've had our duke outs or whatever, but I will support Kristen 110% whatever she wants to do as breeding goes, because that's what we're supposed to be doing. And we get out, and I walk over to Kristen and go, "That's a beautiful bit." I'm gonna break it out, you know. I mean, that black bitch y'all had at DCA, what, 3 years ago, is gorgeous. I love her, and I don't harbor any kind of ill will just because we don't see eye to eye. It's just fruit.
Yeah, you shouldn't. You shouldn't.
And I mean, we've had those discussions, and I think again, just because kind of getting off of like the mentors, I mean, not necessarily Polly and Beth, but I'll just say like growing up, there were people that would be like, "Oh, you can't talk to so and so because you're connected to so and so," and da 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 da. And I'm just like, well, for one thing, I'm a little kid. I can talk to whoever I want. I can do what I want.
What I want.
Also, it's like, again, kind of what we were talking about on the live stream. If you just shut yourself off and only breed to your friends, that's not going to get you anywhere in a breeding program.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't ever move forward. Yeah.
Yep.
You don't move forward.
There's
so.
always going to be people who are nasty though. Like you're never going to get them.
Right.
You know, you're never going to get rid of them. That's just the world we live in. And whatever sport you're in, there's going to be people who aren't welcoming, who are nasty, but it's up to us on an individual level to try to resist that and to do better. I mean, we have to start with ourselves. So I think that's all we can do.
I think, Amber, it's a really good point for you, especially being a young breeder. I mean, you just bred a national specialty winner and a #1 in the breed. Like, that's a really humongous accomplishment.
Yeah.
And I think that I can see a lot of older people being like, well, who's this girl? Well, it doesn't matter if you've been in it 1 year or 10 years. If you did something great, you should be recognized for it. It doesn't matter the length of time. Time is irrelevant. It's about the dedication and the quality.
Right. Yeah. I just don't listen to any of it. I'm good at it, so takes practice, but
you have to be that way. Yeah.
Like Arvin said, you have to have thick skin in Dachshund. You literally have to have thick skin to just like brush off what people have to say about you, and you just have to move forward. I mean, I first started, and the breeder I got my first dog, people were like, "Oh my God, she's crazy! Don't get a dog from her." I'm like, I think I'm okay. I think I've got this, and eventually I found the right people. But yeah, you just have to move past them.
Yeah, it's about the dogs.
Yeah,
it's about the dogs. It's not about the people.
And that's my other thing. It is about these dogs. It is not about me as an individual, Lexa Richmond, and what can I do for Lexa Richmond. It's about my dogs and the Dachshunds. What can I do for Dachshunds at this point? And it is that journey. You have to put some years in to kind of get to that point. But you know, if you kind of come at it with that attitude and surround yourself with the people who are going to be positive influences in your life. That was another one that really held me back a lot for all those years, as I had somebody that I was really good friends with that was just so negative and nasty, and I couldn't be friends with this, and I had to think this way and do this, and it really held me back. And you know, so I hope that
that's exactly where I was, Lexa. You know that you know, you start off with somebody, you do your best is never good enough. You've never done, you know, you don't do what they want you to do. And you know, I'm grown. The last time I checked, I'm not as young as you all. I'm grown. So
electric or what? Like, did you?
Yeah, you can't, you know, and you hate everybody else. You know, speak disparagingly of everybody else's programs. You know, I can't listen to that. You know, you have to kind of cut that off. So that's, you know, why I said what I said about the mentor thing, is that sometimes you have to let that go. It will keep you back. And if you are determined to move forward, you know, you can't allow it. You just can't allow it.
Yeah. So. And I'll just say, just as like one last little thing, because we had this great discussion about collaboration and kind of moving forward in the breeding program, I am the first one to admit, like reflecting back on the past couple of years, because I have had like great friends and great mentors, I feel like I personally have kind of gotten into a bubble. But with that said, like I admire and respect all of you guys. I hope that whenever I see you, whether it's this DCA, I mean, Raul, we've stayed in contact texting over the years whenever you get to come to a show again. But I'd love to continue this collaboration and kind of, I mean, we are the future, I would say. So I thought this was great to bring us together.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad. And like I said, when I thought about amazing young people who are doing great things in the sport, you know, this is the panel that I thought of. And so I'm like, I got to get with people. And I was so glad everybody said yes. And I'll also add to that while I have you guys, if you decide to start working on your judges stuff, let me know. I had Amber out for sweeps, and I'd love to have anybody out for sweeps that wants to collaborate with a lot of clubs and do sweeps. So send me a message and let me know. Yay. I'm so glad when that's over, we'll be back to our regular specialties where I don't have to deal with all of this. So, but I would say go for it. Judge those specialties. It's totally different on the other side, and you'll learn so much. So, anyway, well, I appreciate all you guys. Like I said, you know, I know you're tired, so thank you so much for spending your Mother's Day doing this for all of our people. And you know, the live feed should be finishing going on Facebook, and you can go back and watch little bits of it at your leisure if you want to. I always like to go back and listen and watch. And I really, really appreciate you guys. I admire you. I love you guys, and I can't wait to interact with each other.
Thank you,
Lexa. Thanks for bringing us together.
Bye, guys.
Have a good day.
Bye, everybody.
You
Yeah.
too. Bye.